I welcome you to our meeting for Thursday, May 9th of 2019, and invite you to join with us in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Secretary, please take the roll. I'm sorry, let's do the fire announcement first. Case of fire, there are two ways to exit these chambers. To my left, you exit through those double doors, turn left immediately, and down the flight of stairs, and at the base of the stairs, turn left and go outside of the building. Perhaps the quickest and best way is the double doors at the rear of the chambers, and again, down the stairs, and again, as far away from the building as possible. Oh, Secretary, take the roll.
Charles Duran.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lefakis. Mary Scott. Virginia Higley.
Here.
Ken Nelson.
Here.
Linda DeGray. John Petronella.
Here.
Guillermo Salazar.
Here.
And Richard Suzak is here.
Alternates Petronella and Salazar will be sitting in for the absent commissioners. Let's see, approval of minutes of April 25th, a regular meeting.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. I'm sorry,
Who seconded that, please?
Kenny or me, either one.
pointing at that end.
It was a tie.
Charlie raised his hand first.
Okay.
Okay, any additions, errors, or omissions? I picked up just a couple errors, well, a couple should be probably additions. On page 1, after the approval of minutes, it says motion, and then it says Commissioner DeGray to approve the minutes from April 11, 2019, regular meeting as amended. And I don't think there's anywhere in there that says what it was amended to. And I don't know
It was
if
amended.
you'd ever know what it would be. So they should be added.
Yeah.
There's only one thing, whatever it was.
Yeah, it was a
Well, yeah,
typo.
it was,
It was a typo. And,
Okay.
these are minutes. They're not supposed to be exact replica or.
no, I know, well, the problem was, and maybe it's not the same. We ran into people a long time that unless it was in here, they didn't, even these have to go to the courts too. So a lot of times they check these first, and then if it's not here, it's sort of tough to prove one way or the other. It's just, if it was one word, then I suppose it's not important, but the other was page 3 of 11. I'm sorry, page 2. Page 2. Yeah, up on the top on the right, and that's, it says she can obtain it in writing. I guess,
Yeah, if you read the whole thing, it's legible.
yeah, I think that was, they wanted to extend the meeting.
Said the request is made over the phone at 5 p.m., but you can obtain it in writing. Page 2?
Yeah, but it didn't say.
No, here, it's got a term above it, it says, request to table the application in writing.
Okay,
He replied,
all right, well, it wasn't to the application, though, I don't think, that's all right.
Excuse me. At the time of these minutes, we did not have them, so that's why it just says can be obtained by writing.
Okay.
We
No,
could
I
get something
just-
in writing after the fact, but you can't put that in the minutes
No,
because
no,
it's
I
not
know.
reflective of the meeting.
Why did I do that, though? It was table the application, and it's not, well, it wasn't an application, it was continue, I thought. All right, but then, and then page 1 is it, then, it would all be, I'd say. Okay, and nothing else. All in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. 700. Let's see.
200 Street.
At this point in the meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission welcomes comments, concerns, and opinions regarding planning and zoning in Enfield from anyone who's present, provided you may not discuss any matter of business that is elsewhere on this agenda, any matter that's part of an open public hearing, or any matter where a decision of the commission may be pending. Is there anyone who would like to address the commission under those conditions? Anyone would like to address the commission under those conditions? Hearing none, then anyone would like to address the commission? Hearing none, we'll move on to cite the public hearing. Public hearing 2 Enfield Street.
No bond releases, right?
No bond releases, no old business.
This is
The applicant's here, and the secretary, please take the roll.
Charles Durin,
Here.
Charles Ladd,
Here.
Virginia Higley,
Here.
Ken Nelson,
Here.
John Petronella,
Here.
Guillermo Salazar, and Richard Suzak is here.
Alternates Petronella and Salazar will be sitting in on this hearing. Again, gentlemen, welcome, and if you would, for the record, your names and addresses.
Good evening. My name's James Channing for Pride, 246 Cottage Street in Springfield, Mass.
Scott Hesketh with F.A. Hesketh and Associates, 3 Creamery Brook, East Granby, Connecticut.
Hope you've received the revisions that we made. There were a few of them that, in meeting with the planning and department after our last public hearing 2 weeks ago, we did revise the plan slightly. Just go over that, if you will. I believe the commission requested the wheel stops be added to the westernmost 2 parking spots. Those are now reflective on the plan. In addition, the 10-foot landscape buffer as described in the western part of the building has been added and shown here to comply as well as with the bollards. We removed the 2 parking spots up along Enfield Street based on discussing with the planning board that they were superfluous or unnecessary, and then to really alleviate the circulation plan and make it even, from a safety standpoint, in our opinion, more safe. With respect,
The wheel stops, are they where the cut-through was?
correct. So that prevents any cut through. I think the concern was at the time that there was a potential for these cars to be able to pull through and go out, and so now there are in fact proposed concrete wheel stops here, the typical.
And how will your vehicles get through?
How will our vehicles get through in terms of the loading?
I thought you, right, I thought you.
Deliveries.
I thought your delivery
In terms of the
was in there.
circulation, it'll be again off hours, but the circulation comes in and then it backs into the loading spot. So
Okay,
it comes in
that's-
past and then backs. I believe that's
Off hours.
reflected on the circulation
All right,
plan.
well, that's why instead of that, I talked about Cape Cod curbs, which they could drive, your trucks could drive over.
Right. But I think that may be in a position, I mean, we're
It doesn't make any
open
difference.
to anything
I don't
that
know
the
what's
the
better.
commission would prefer.
I don't know, that's up to, I guess it was you people, curb cuts.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
I think if you were to put the Cape Cod curbs there, that the citizens might actually try to drive through.
Oh, I know they might. Yeah, they
So,
would.
and this solves the problem by not allowing them to drive through, and the delivery trucks come around and just back in and then
And they
go
can
straight
back in,
out.
all right. Well,
As long as you're not having big trucks coming in there, I don't think it's gonna be a problem. So,
all right, I just figured that I knew you had wanted your delivery trucks to go through.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Why is there even a concern whether cars go through there or not?
so they could cut in line. They could,
I mean,
Road rage.
yeah.
that's what I'm saying is
Yeah.
it's not our concern
Yeah.
at all, whether vehicles go through there or not.
It could cause a traffic issue if they're trying to cut through.
Well, if people are in line to order, they may not expect somebody to come whizzing through in front of them.
Yeah.
I would think, I don't know.
Get a little road rage.
That's all right, it
terms of-
solved the problem, it doesn't,
But to me, I don't care if they're there or not.
No,
I mean, it's just
yeah.
ease for them, because they do have a tight parking lot for them to get the trucks in there.
well,
Yeah, because I was the one who originally raised that as a concern. It seems like that you know, that island that's supporting, you know, the ordering station is such a disconnect from the building, and it's out in the middle of nowhere. And I think that was my concern, is that, you know, when you have such a big disconnect, a lot of things could start happening in voids that exist that don't have sort of an assigned function to have something going on there. So, you know, if it's a wide open space, that you could actually get, you know, a number of things. You know, all of a sudden you might get picnic tables there, or, you know, a group of people just hanging out there
Okay,
and you know, doing all kinds of stuff. And I think that, you know, that's what I was concerned, is that, you know, all of a sudden you have this large expanse that is totally unaccompanied for, you know, it has no function at all. So some function, something would always fill that void, and hopefully it won't be a negative fill of that void. So, and I think that was my
City
concern.
took those out.
I
yeah, but
agree
he
with
didn't,
what you're saying, and I guess I don't understand why the order, where you place the order, wouldn't be on the first island closest to the building. One, it puts more of a separation between the neighbors and the property, and then they could turn the whole back into parking for the sorry. So they could put the whole back of the property in parking spaces for the employees and stuff, which frees up so much more space.
Like,
'Cause
Or it can be more green space, you know, and
Right,
that's
it
what I
just-
was wondering in terms of, you know, why do they have that space there if it has no function, and they, you know, and again, I guess I just wanted to, you know, somebody to try to address that, and rather than you say, well, we're just going to add wheel stops to stop the traffic there, but you still have that void there in terms of, you know, people could still start congregating in that area if it has no use.
the drawings, Charlie just pointed out to me, the drawings not only show the wheel stops, there's 2 parking places added there, which will be in front of the wheel stops.
took care of the two that were in the front.
takes-
Right, but I guess what I'm getting at is any drive-through you ever go through, the drive-through line does not block the parking spaces. So on a morning at 7 a.m. in the morning, they got 20 cars in line, the people who pull into the parking spaces are going to be blocked in.
Yeah, if they come
So
around, that's what
if
it
you
is.
were to move the drive line closer to the building and put the parking spaces on the outside of the building, or on the outside of the property, and then make the traffic line go to the backside.
Over coming in.
That's similar like McDonald's does,
Well, McDonald's, Dairy Queen, all of them are like that.
yeah.
No, the one- McDonald's on Hazard Avenue, it's against the building, because you don't want to get run over there. Those guys come through in a hurry.
On Hazard Avenue is different, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we can solve the design flaw
I'm just-
that exists. I think that there's just something that has occurred that appears to have some mechanism, you know, driving it, but I'm not sure what that mechanism is.
Well, the unloading dock was at the back there, they needed a spot for the truck to get into.
Right. So,
And if he can back into it now, and he's moved the 2 front parking areas down back, he's covered that, and
And it covered their pervious surface a
I
little
had
bit.
raised that about the cars backing out,
I know you did.
so,
Is there a particular reason why you guys designed it that way, instead of putting the parking spaces on the outer edge?
It's what complies with the regulations. This is about our, as you're very familiar, about our 12th concept plan. I think the main issue that we had coming into it in terms of getting approval would be, one, for DOT and the queues and the stacking that are required for the drive-through lane to have at least 10 vehicles being able to stack.
Okay.
And the second one being in the regulations of infield, it requires in the 90-degree parking, when you have 90-degree parking, as at one point we had proposed here, well, then you need, I believe, at least 48 on each side. And so we weren't able to accomplish that. And so those parking spots were removed on the most recent plan that I believe complies with everything else with respect to parking. And then in terms of congregating, I think snow storage obviously would be great. And then we can't really angle it because the way that, in our terms, the way the drive-through is now being, or excuse me, the delivery is being proposed is that they actually will angle it to back in. So they'll cut here, this area, although we have the 10-foot landscaping, this, and then again, the concrete wheel stops to prevent any vehicles from being
Better this way.
attempted to cut through. And so that's, I think at this point in time,
Same traffic here as they need
dealing
to.
with all these different regulations, whether it be the state of Connecticut or the DOT, when they're going to look at it to make sure that there's an appropriate amount of queuing space, to the circulation plan, to the parking regulations in the town of Enfield, that'd be what led us to this design.
Okay.
I know it's been a difficult procedure to put something on here because I don't know what number this is or times that they've been in to try to use the space.
In terms of additional changes, we did add an additional tree along Connecticut Avenue as well to comply with the landscaping requirements. We also reviewed the sign regulations, and I think as it was well pointed out, that the sign itself can't be above the eaves or can't be on the roof line. So we're now actually bringing it down here. And so the building sign or the wall sign will again be below the roof, just above the doorway or above the egress area. And we also added what will be the message of the font on this bottom half of the internally illuminated sign, that being just the drive-through. So it's going to say, again, the Pride Kitchen here, and then drive-through here. We, again, are asking for a special permit for internally illuminated sign as well. If I may just sit. And following up on additional communications we had, our engineer did communicate with the State Department of Transportation with respect to the sewer work or potential drainage work in Route 5. There's no conflict with respect to what we're proposing to do as well. He spoke to Kelly McKeon there, and she indicated that obviously they're reviewing our drainage report about what they have proposed or what may happen in the future would not be detrimental or impact negatively our proposal with respect to tying into the system. We also received comments from the Board of Health or the Health District. Respond to those. They were concerned as to how where the dumpster would be, as well as the renderings, the external grease trap, and a recycling plan. We'll use a single stream recycling. We use USA Hauling, and they come in with a 4 to 6 yard dumpster will be there as well in the back screened in area to the northwest area of the property. I would defer to, at this point, our traffic engineer, Scott Hesketh, who can advise you as to the updates and the additional information we obtained at your request.
McDonald's has one on the outside.
The commission had requested that we obtain
It's a rendering tab.
accident
Should be there.
data from the town police department. I did contact Matthew Meyer, who provided an email. I asked him to provide accident data for Route 5 from the Massachusetts state line to a point 500 feet south of Connecticut Avenue. He provided data to us. The first set of data he got from the Yukon crash data repository, same place where I got my accident data. He provided data for the years 2015, 16, 17, 18, up through May 1st, 2019. And he's provided accident report numbers for 20 accidents over that section, over those 4+ years of.
4 years.
He also reported that the town of Enfield had data on 13 additional accidents, which he termed as non-reportable crashes. And there was 13 accidents over that same period of time as well. Minor accidents, which the police department was called, but they gave it a case number, but did know that accidents were so minor in nature that they didn't bother doing any investigations or reporting on those. So in our original report, we had provided, we had indicated there were, I believe 12 accidents over a 3-year period in that same section. So if the police department is reporting over a 4.5-year period, 13 non-reportable accidents versus 20 reportable accidents, we were reporting 12 accidents, so that maybe there's 7 or 8 non-reportable accidents during that same 3-year period. So it's not, although it's a it's a number of accidents, it's not a significant number of accidents, and extremely minor in nature, those additional accidents. We did ask for additional information from the town of Longmeadow. I spoke with the town engineer, Andrew Carr, and he was working with me to get information from the police department, but we don't have that information at this time, so I have nothing to report on that.
Probably won't get it.
Oh, no, well,
In 2017, they did give us a list of accidents, but it was 2 accidents during the month of, July, 3 accidents during August. It was a number of accidents, but there was no detailed information about it that
People were
that we could
driving a
report
little
on,
bit.
so.
better than I thought they were, what they appear to be, I guess.
Yeah, they had reported a total of 15 accidents. I guess 1 at Booth Road and 14 at Longmeadow Street. And it's not very detailed information. They just break it down by month. And that was for the years 2015, 2016, and the first 2 months of 2017. So we asked for updated data and more detailed data, but we're still negotiating, trying to get the information.
Okay.
So.
No fables.
Questions from the commission? No? We'll open it to the public then. Anyone in the public who'd like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public who'd like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public who'd like to speak in favor or against the application? Lori, any communication from the town of Longmeadow?
There was not.
none. All
We
right.
received nothing.
And it's been posted, so even the Longmeadow drivers would have seen it going by anyway. And in fact, if they hadn't seen the sign, they would see the construction equipment out there from the state, so they'd wonder what was going on. Any reason, I'm sorry.
'Cause I still have one more question. In terms of, I'm looking at the engineering comments where they want the detailed, cross-sections for the pavement, the dumpster pad, the sidewalks and permeable pavers, and a curb detail. Is that on your drawings yet?
No, that's part of the construction drawings that we do or submit. Would be
All right.
a final drawings. In terms, I know Dana Steele from Russo and Associates have spoken to.
Because doesn't that normally on the site drawings in terms of,
Says it should be.
in terms of, that's, I guess, construction drawings, but the details should be on the site drawings that we're looking at also.
We, in the past, we've typically submitted them in terms of the final packet, but if it's something that needs to be worked out or.
Well, I think that
conditioned-
it should be part of the site package, and we're looking at the site package now, I guess, is what I'm saying, in terms of, if because all these details are the site related, and we should be looking at, more or less a final site package that, should go to the town.
And my understanding, communications with, again, our engineer, our principal engineer and the engineer, they want that as part of the construction detailing packet and looking at what was required in the site plan and the regulations. I mean, it's certainly something that we have no problem providing. We will provide, and obviously, we've done in the past, we have it. It's a standard, in my
All
understanding.
right, I'm just going to add that as the conditions of approval in terms of, that's, I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
is
we'll
that-
absolutely make sure that in terms of the
Yeah.
stamp, the final stamp set, that everything
Just
will
so
be
that
included
it
to
doesn't
review
get
and have.
lost in, like you said, I would expect that it would be part of the original submittal.
Understood.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Lori.
I would recommend that you make conditions of approval based on the engineering and the WPC comments.
Right.
It's very,
Pollution
they're
control.
standard details, so I don't see any problem with them adding them before the sheets are signed. And then I just have one question.
pollution,
The light posts that are gonna be placed on the northern edge of the property, that's basically gonna be in pavement
They're on the
and
correct.
at the, almost like on the line. So
They'll
how
be-
is that gonna work?
The proposal is to have the raised bollars, or actually the concrete there on the curbed area, obviously to make sure that they're within the state of Connecticut, and then have a protection area around them. But it would be, in fact, the way it's placed out in terms of the thickness of the curb on the state line, that they'll be there, so it won't be in a circulation plan or the vehicle's way. They'll be raised enough to see them. They're called out. It's not part of, obviously, flush with the curb itself, and then protect the bollards as necessary as well.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
More questions?
no, so, well, there was going on. Again, let me repeat, just in case, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone to speak in favor or against the application? Last call to speak in favor or against the application. No reason to keep this hearing open? Hearing none, then I'll close public hearing 2989.
30.
39, yep.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the draft resolution for the approval of public hearing 2939, dated, I believe it's last month's April 25th, 2019, with, as prepared by the Planning Department, with the 32 conditions that are listed, and I guess we're going to be also adding a condition for, I guess there's just two things that I understood you're looking to see. You're looking to add an internally lit site sign, and we also have the conditions associated with the comments from the town engineer and the health department,
Water pollution
or water
control.
pollution control. So I think that those would be two additional conditions that we were going to be adding.
Second.
Motion's made and second. Discussion.
I think that they answered all my questions in terms of, I think that there's one little area that still has a disconnect, but I guess we're not going to design, their site for them. But other than that, I think they answered all of my concerns.
I think they put a lot of thought into it and answering our concerns. And I'm appreciative of that, and I think that it looks lovely now.
I'll echo that. They have, the time that they've been here and worked with us, I don't know, it seems like quite a while that we've been doing this. And this is quite, to me, it's going to be quite an addition to that corner of what's been there over the years, especially what's there now. And it's be quite an addition there. I don't think it's up to us to try it. We tried, and they've looked at it, to try to solve the traffic conditions up there. That's going to have to be between the two states. It's been worked on for quite a while, but it's beyond what we can do. And in fact, we can't require it off-site. And they've moved the entrances up. It's quite an improvement to the area.
I agree, it's very different from what they started with 3 years ago, or whatever it was. It was quite a while, but
Well, they've acquired property.
it looks
and
good, so.
They've done about everything we've asked and could do. The only thing is that we are approving the sound system apparently, which may create a problem with McDonald's, but to me, they have more sound deadening. They have bushes and trees and a fence there. It's also from the equipment material you've given us is that it has a sound decibel control, as long as the people working the night don't boost it up. So, if you want to move the question, then we'll.
We already did.
If you did, no, you all those votes there, you just stop. All right. All in favor of the approval? Opposed? Abstention? One abstention. 6-4, none against, one abstention. Abstention, Mr. Nelson.
Abstention.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen on the commission, and thank you for your proposals and really for your work you've done down there. That area will be much improved.
Just don't get run over coming out of there.
Well, that's not ours. I know it. But he's had work studies, and you really can't, from what they say, you can't make him do that. He can't repair that road.
No. They are what it's are.
It's gonna cost him a fortune to do anything with that road.
I think they did about what they
As
could.
much as they could,
Right,
yeah.
right, in terms of, and the nose, I think, in terms of the noise.
Yeah,
In terms
I
of
know.
directional and everything, that whatever was happened before, they can control that cone of sound, however it goes.
Okay. What's next?
Okay. Site plan review. Let me get the sheet out here.
1774.
You want me to take roll first and then we'll?
Hang on, let me get the paperwork.
Mr.
Sure,
Chairman?
you go through. Oh, you got it, okay.
The applicant has requested that the AAA
I
application
know,
be
we're just
continued.
gonna go through so it's legal. I
Okay.
was looking for my paperwork.
Okay.
Doing my own filing, I'm not very good at, so. All right, second, public hearing, I'm sorry, site plan review is 1774. It's AAA. And Secretary, please take the roll. This is a continuation.
Charles Durin,
Here.
Charles Ladd,
Yeah.
Virginia Higley,
Here.
Ken Nelson,
Here.
John Petronella,
Here.
Guillermo Salazar,
Here.
and Richard Suzak is here.
Again, just for the record, Commissioners Petronella and Salazar will be sitting in for absent commissioners. And we have a letter from a Matthew J. Brutton on behalf of AAA requesting a continuance until 5/28/2019.
523.
5/23, sorry, 2019. I'm still reading 3s as 9s, 8s.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we continue public hearing 1774 to our next meeting on May 23rd, 2019.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Lori, we have the time? All right.
Yeah,
Oh.
they've got time.
All in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. That takes care of that one. That's this.
Okay, the next guy is 76, Reptile.
Yeah, reptiles. Okay. This is the site plan review. SPR 1776 is 138 South Road. Secretary, please take the roll. And
Charles Durin,
here,
Charles Ladd,
Here.
Virginia Higley,
Here.
Ken Nelson, John Petronella,
Here.
Guillermo Salazar,
Here.
and Richard Suzak is here.
Commissioner, alternates Petronell and Salazar will be sitting in for the absent commissioners. If you will, please, gentlemen, introduce yourselves.
Good evening, my name is Kiran Majmudar, IT Consultants Engineers in Enfield. With me is Tom Murphy, the owner and a potential tenant for the Reptile Education Center, Brian Kleinman, on my right.
we are here to present the project that's located on 138 South Road, South Road Plaza. I've seen this plaza for many, many years. I've gone by it for many, many years, and this would be a good opportunity for the owners and the new tenants to have a good facelift as well as site improvement at that location. The project consists of site itself improvement. There is no additional pavement proposed for the site. Within the building, there is a reptile education center that's proposed. And Brian, as well as the owner, will address more details when the commission has more questions. As to the aquifer protection application, we've made that application. As to the wetland commission, we are not. All the wetlands are on the property. There's no impact to the wetland, additional impact. Oops, sorry. That's okay. Yeah, I gotta start over again?
No,
May I continue or start over?
no, continue.
As
Just
to,
the people at home have missed what you said, but it's been really introductory.
the wetlands on the site are present, however, there is no impact to the wetlands, so therefore no wetland commission, wetland applications have been made, because there's no addition to the site or any impact to the wetlands due to addition of pavement or any such site improvement. Aquifer protection application has been made. Part of the site is within that protection zone, and I'm assuming the commission is hearing the same application along with the site plan review. There were a couple of smaller questions that we have answered in the narrative as well as the revision to the narrative about the parking as well as about the landscaping. The parking is basically re-striped to meet current regulations, and that's why it meets the number of parking spaces required compared to what it used to be before. So although the number is larger by 10 spaces because of the re-striping and resizing per current regulations, there's no need for additional parking or additional pavement square footage here. As to the landscaping within the islands along South Road, there are 5 islands, and those islands will have 2 new trees versus the 6 existing that are not doing too well as far as the health of the tree as well as the tree root system breaking up the pavement. So when the owner in the near future decides to redo the pavement, the 6 existing not so healthy as well as breaking up pavement trees will be removed, and new 2 trees per island will be planted in accordance with the landscaping requirement. More importantly, I think this is a good opportunity for the plaza to have a facelift, and the new owners and the new tenants would certainly like to do that. They've shown that willingness, and knowing the town and knowing this plaza, I think we need it. I will stop at this point. Owner would like to add something. The tenant would like to add something. You're welcome.
I just want to say that, we purchased the plaza. We view it as a diamond in the rough. It's been deteriorated over many years. And we believe that Mr. Kleiman's business coming in is going to be a real shot in the arm for the plaza, but not only for the plaza, but I think for Enfield, because I think with Mr. Kleiman's business is going to be a destination. I think it is extremely unique. I went through it very thoroughly through the business plan. I presented it to United Bank, who owns the mortgage, and they were thrilled by it. So I think it's going to be a very viable business. I think it's going to bring people to Enfield, bring people to the plaza, which will help us resurrect that plaza, clean it up, and get it to where it should be. So with that, I don't know, if Brian, if you want to talk about.
I'm not sure it's working.
maybe if you change chairs and allow him get closer to the main mic. Help him.
Good evening. My name is Brian Kleiman. I'm the owner and operator of Riverside Reptiles, and the Riverside Reptiles Education Center will be a facility dedicated primarily to reptiles and amphibians. For me, they're the most curious creatures of the animal world. The uniqueness of the zoo will draw great attention not only from southern New England, but residents will also tap into this tourist trade. The popularity of Connecticut science and nature centers like Roaring Brook Nature Center of Canton, the Children's Museum in West Hartford, the Connecticut Science Center in Hartford, the Maritime Aquarium in Norwalk, Mystic Aquarium, the Magic Wings Butterfly Observatory in Deerfield, and the Beardsley Zoo in Bridgeport bodes well for the addition of this specialized zoo. The Riverside Reptiles Education Center will be a place of fascination and education, giving visitors a special opportunity to get up close and personal with the diverse indigenous and exotic reptiles, amphibians, and other creatures. The RREC will offer a comfortable, colorful environment with plenty of room for single explorers and groups. There will be one expansive room will be available for educational programs and birthday parties. Gifts shop will be is also planned. Approximately 5,000 to 8,000 square feet of specific environmental design will house at least 100 to 120 species of amphibians and reptiles and arthropods, invertebrates, in naturalistic zoo-like settings. So visitors will observe the animal and the habitat in which it thrives. When feasible, a single enclosure will house multiple species, giving guests intriguing insight into how certain species occupy specific niches and easily cohabitate. The Riverside Reptiles Education Center will not only be successful in its mission statement of educating the public of how to coexist with these fascinating animals, but it'll also become a financially secure institution that will be a mainstay here in Connecticut for many years to come. This zoo will also bring a lot of economic benefits to the town of Enfield. Similar facilities attract large numbers of visitors every year, thus stimulating the local economy. Based on research and discussions of similar zoos and educational centers, I estimate the first year the zoo will attract around anywhere from 40 to 50,000 visitors. And then the average, around 60 to 70,000 visitors per year. For example, the Children's Museum in West Hartford gets around 150 to 190,000 visitors per year. The Connecticut Science Center in Hartford brings in anywhere from 275,000 to 300,000 visitors a year. And the Magic Wings Butterfly Conservatory, which is just up the road in Deerfield, brings in about 250,000 visitors a year. So I think it will be a great destination and a great excuse to come to Enfield and check out some reptiles. But I'll leave it up to you. I'm sure you have lots of questions for me.
Ken.
That plaza has been in disarray for many, many years, and the only thing that kept it open or sustainable was the Child Development Center that was there for years. And we took a tour, and disarray is being very polite when it came to that building. And once the town of Enfield decided to move out, that was the end of it. And I don't think they've touched that building in 20 years. The new owners have done more work there in 6 months than the previous owners done in 20 years. I read the comments about the parking lot and stuff like that. They took a big chance on Enfield, and this sounds like it could be a very strong anchor tenant for them. And I'm sure they're going to do wonderful things with the facade on the building, but they need some income coming in to sustain what they have and start making more improvements to the building, which they've already done quite a few. And I think this would be a great addition to Enfield. And like you said, it's a destination for younger kids and stuff like that. I mean, I really haven't heard of anything like this, but I will check it out. And my last thing would be is we require, color samples, siding samples, patio furniture samples.
I know he has samples in the car, and I want to see one of them. And it's a free plug for him on TV to walk in here with one of the snakes. I know Jenny wants to hold one. So I think while we're discussing this, he should run down and show us what type of animals he's going to have there.
Well, yes.
Yeah, if you really want me to, I can go get one.
I think you should be, because again, you're on ETV, which goes throughout the town. We do have quite a few visitors, or viewers, and.
Right.
He'll be back in a minute.
It's a free commercial, so.
Right.
I'll be back.
But I just want to thank you guys for what you've done so far to the plaza. And
He's got a 90-pounder out there. You sure you want him to bring it in?
Jenny's going to hold it. I didn't say I was going to.
Snake is 90 pounds, he said he had up there.
That's okay.
They got spiders too, though.
Maybe you will know the answer to my question, and if not, I'll wait till he comes back. In his presentation, he said mostly they would be doing the reptiles. What's the rest of it? The birthday parties and,
Arachnids, I think.
So
pardon me?
Spiders.
So I think what he's going to be doing, you can visit like a zoo, like any other zoo every day, but I think he's going to be doing like live programs where he gets up and he
Okay,
talks
but he's
about
not
them.
selling any of them.
No.
No, okay.
In fact, it's,
Okay, that was my main concern.
Yeah,
And
no.
my other thing is, I understand you have to make money to spend money.
Right.
But that parking lot is atrocious. You're going to restripe it,
Right.
and someone is going to fall or hurt themselves. So I want to go on record as saying I don't think it's a good idea not to fix. I'm not saying you have to fix it today, but there should be something, like 2 years from now, a year from now,
well, if I could, so my number one concern at the plaza is replacing the roof. The roof is leaking in every unit.
that's-
And we've just pulled a building permit, and I'm hoping within the next 2 weeks to start replacing the roof. So that is going to be a significant cost. The build-out that we have to do as the tenant for Mr. Kleiman is going to be a significant expense too. But to your point, every time I drive through that parking lot, I cringe myself. So I have been pricing out to get it repaved, and as you would imagine, it's pretty significant.
Okay. Well, that allays some of my fears. As I said, I know you're brand new, and I'm thankful that you bought that plaza because I think it could be a gem if done correctly. But I think that you're at least looking at fixing the parking. Because I think that if this is a massive, he's going to have like 40,000 people.
Right.
I'm not saying all at the same time, but I'm saying that when they go to park, they're not going to be happy.
Right. Well, I take your point, and from a marketing standpoint, to get new potential tenants,
Oh, no, I understand. Roof and interior
Yeah.
safety is much more important, but I hope that you'll keep the parking lot on the list. Move it up.
It is absolutely on the list.
Okay, thank you.
Hey. Sure.
Yes.
I'm curious along the same lines with the parking. I have been there myself as well. And but you say you're going to restripe it. Is that actually really possible with the condition of the lot? Because you're going to reduce in some cases the width of the parking space, if I understand your explanation correctly. And is that going to be feasible?
You brought the snake.
Let him answer the question before you open the box.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think we can restripe it. I don't think there's going to be any issues. The lines are pretty light as they are. So, at least they'll be vibrant and they'll pop out.
You'll have to redo them when they repave anyway, so.
It's also a liability issue, too, for the owner, and the insurance company's going to inspect that parking lot. So any substantial potholes or anything, they can just go through and fill them. And
That's the whole
I
parking
understand.
lot.
But, back then,
Oh, no, I understand what you're saying,
Brad, if you
and
give him the seat that he can make the most use of, or the best use of,
I'm sorry? Yeah.
Yeah.
let him,
Nobody wants to be friends with that box.
As the landlord, if one of these gets loose, you're gonna.
lease. If they get loose, don't call me.
Call animal control.
I'm the animal control.
Go ahead. Any questions first from them? No, I had a few. It mentions tanks. What are you building tanks, or what do you use as tanks?
The exhibits are going to be assembled off-site by an exhibit company, and then they're going to be prefabricated and then moved in. They're not necessarily going to be tanks like you see in a fish store. They're more of like zoo exhibits. Like if you've been to the Children's Museum or Beardsley Zoo or Bronx Zoo, it's more similar to those.
Okay, I was just wondering the type of material, like a swimming pool or whatever else, but you're doing something of substantial equipment.
Right. Yep. There will be some pools for the larger animals like the alligators.
Now, you mentioned in your something I read that you plan on outdoor exhibits or outdoor. What type?
Correct.
What would you do in that outdoor?
I believe it's to the west of the building. There is grass where the daycare used to have a playground, I assume. So I'm gonna put high fence up along the border of that, and we're gonna make like paddocks for some of the larger tortoises. Mostly just landscaping. Nothing permanent. We'll probably put in some small ponds for turtles and stuff, and probably like a butterfly garden, a place where people can come out and have their lunch or have a drink or something.
Is that shown on the plans? I didn't.
It should be.
Okay.
It should be on the plan. It will. Yeah, it is on the plans.
Yeah. Okay. Now, so the critters or the animals would be brought in at night, and I would imagine you wouldn't leave them out there.
Most of them will be brought in at night, and it would be seasonal as well. Because obviously, since they're reptiles, they can't be out there in the winter. So, just be utilizing that space during the warmer months.
Okay. Yes.
One of
Just-
my questions, go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, if you get approved tonight, when would you be open for the public?
Right now, it's looking like probably fall, October maybe. But a lot of it depends. But
Thank you.
that's what we're shooting for.
So where would you put the animals in the winter? Where do you store them? I mean, you can't just put them in a box for the winter.
Right, correct. The animals that will be going outside will have indoor displays as well.
Oh, okay.
Basically, the Aldabra tortoises, which are a giant island species, kind of similar to the Galapagos tortoises. They get like 500 pounds. They'll have an indoor area as well. And when they're not inside, we'll figure out something else to put in there for the time being. There will be a place to store animals off exhibit as well. So if we need to fill a space, we can just move one of those animals into the space so it's not empty.
My other question would be, animals by nature don't like to be penned in, so they're going to try to get out. How are you ensuring that? You got a great land behind them for some of those creatures to live in.
Yeah, well,
How do you prevent that? And guarantee that almost.
right. Yeah, I mean, wild animals don't like being penned in, but pretty much 99% of the animals I have and I use are captive bred. So they're very used to being in a zoo, being in captivity, or interactions with humans. I wouldn't just go grab a wild snake and bring it into captivity and expect it to be,
Thrilled.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I'm very critical on the animals I use for my programs. Right now, I work out of my home, and I have them in the reptile room right now, and they're not banging on the doors trying to escape. They're very used to captivity.
Where do you live? Next door to you.
I live in East Granby. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, a question probably for LP. On the site plan, you show bus, I assume it's school bus parking, so they're all stacked, I guess, along there. I was just curious as to, is there enough room for, I guess, turnaround? Is that an issue, or is there enough area in the back that you're going to turn buses around, or?
You got the parking lot.
Yeah, I think.
That'd be to the far west of the property.
Right. I think the idea is there is enough room on the west side, and the idea is to have, whenever the school is in session, have the school students come in for educational seminar, classes, what have you, and that's the idea. But they will have enough time, room to turn around and go out. But that was the idea for the buses, and that's why they requested a bus stop site.
Okay.
That's what we're showing.
Yeah, because you don't show, like, you show, I guess, just one long row of parking, and I assume they're going to drop off, turn around in the back somehow, and stack there along that line, or
Stack in the parking lot.
one way, shape, or form. Just for turning around, that's all. I'm just curious. as
Right,
to
they
how they're
could
gonna-
back out, they could turn around. I'm not sure whether they'll have multitude of buses at one time, or they'll have just one or two. I'm assuming it won't be more than one or two.
It will vary. You know, before I chose the Enfield site, there was a site I was looking at in Windsor Locks. So I called some bus companies, and they, you know, I have some friends that actually drive buses. So I showed them the plans, and, you know, I showed them the plans of this, and they said it should be no problem. So we're thinking, you know, 3-4 buses maybe at the most. But usually it's like what Kieran said, 1 or 2.
Yeah, I doubt it would have the scenario of a school, 8 o'clock bus traffic.
Yeah.
And that, I don't think that'll happen.
Okay.
Any further questions before we have the showing of one of the reptiles? Okay.
You ready? All right.
She's crouching down there.
You gotta go big or go home. So I went big.
Corinne.
How old is that snake?
I don't think I'm
He's
gonna.
about 24 years old.
How long did they live?
30.
Oh, wow.
His name is Percy.
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 He actually, the reason why I just don't travel with reptiles in my car 24/7.
Yeah.
But here, I'll put him down right here.
How heavy?
He's 90 pounds.
Yeah.
So he's getting a little heavy.
Percy's gorgeous.
What kind of snake is he?
He's a Burmese python.
Python. Oh. Okay, Percy the
Actually,
python.
we just came from after-school program in Oakdale. So that's why I have all these reptiles in my car. I wasn't planning on bringing reptiles tonight, but it just happened to work out that way.
One of our members, I think, didn't come in case you did.
In fact, she sat right here, so, yeah.
Yeah, and Percy, he's about 13 feet and 90 pounds.
What do you feed him? Anything he wants?
He eats rats.
Oh.
Yeah, a
He
lot
eats-
of rats.
Oh, good.
Well, that's
I'm not a big rat
that's a good
person, so
thing for
good.
the-
Good for you, Percy.
How long have you had them?
I've had him since 2001. He was a rescue. He was actually going to be killed.
Oh.
And he was rescued. He was emaciated when I got him. He had 2nd-degree burns on his belly
Oh.
because he was being kept in an enclosure that was too small. So I nursed him back to health, and he's been a great ambassador for Riverside Reptiles ever since. Kids love him, and he's just the nicest snake.
Yeah.
Has he ever bit you?
No?
Does he have teeth?
Oh yeah.
I thought they just, I thought they you know.
They
Constrict.
their prey.
Yes.
Yeah, but they have about 70 teeth in their mouth they use to hold on.
70?
to wrap them there.
Big enough to eat.
Yeah, a snake this size can eat something about half its own weight. So he's 90 pounds. He can eat something around.
I think he knows we're
40 to
talking about him.
45
He's on his best behavior.
So when you're open, and they're on exhibit, will the kids be actually able to touch a snake like this, or?
Not without supervision of the staff. You know, when I first started with reptiles, I really have a hands-on
Yeah.
initiative because I want, you know, to get kids and even adults interested in animals,
Yeah.
just to be able to touch them. You know, we'll start, you know, them wanting to learn more. So they will get a chance to touch a lot of animals. I'll always have a staff member available. We'll be doing animal demonstrations. But there won't be any areas where people will have direct public access to
Right,
touch the animal.
right, but you'll bring them out and you'll, you know, talk about them and
Oh, yeah, of
everything.
course. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I do.
Well, I mean, that's the best thing in a zoo is when you're actually interacting a little bit with the animals, like petting the stingrays and stuff like that. And it makes
70 teeth, I think I'll just admire him.
Lori, you gonna pet them?
You can pet him. You can go down. You can pet him.
I think that he's gorgeous.
You can pet him
He
anywhere.
has pretty beautiful colors.
He looks like the boots you were wearing yesterday, Lori.
Oh, look at his tail. Whoa, there he goes, Lori.
He's looking for something to anchor on. He always feels more comfortable when his tail's anchored on something.
Look, he's got a little eye.
Now he'll go up in like a tree or some sort of a,
When they're young, they're arboreal, but when they get big and heavy like this, they usually sit on the ground.
Okay.
They're ambush predators.
Always come to see you, Lori.
he's cold, Jenny?
He's cold and he's soft.
A reptile?
Really soft.
I gotta touch the guy.
Probably smells your dog.
That's okay. He doesn't eat dogs, you're safe.
Oh, good.
Well, one of the conditions of approval is gonna be the landlord has to hold every animal.
See, he's soft, and if you touch his sides, he's a little on the cold.
Yes.
That's an understatement.
He doesn't mind being in here?
Not Python, but.
No, he's used to traveling.
Oh, okay.
He's a great ambassador, but because of his age, he'll probably be retiring soon. But he will be probably on display at the zoo, so he won't be going on outreach programs anymore. I have some younger Burmese pythons that are coming up that are,
How long have you had this passion for reptiles?
ever since I can remember.
Oh, wow.
I
That's
grew up
great.
in Barkhamsted, which is, you know, very
Oh, yeah.
rural. So
They got lots of critters.
lots of critters, and back in the 80s, there wasn't a mall to hang out at. I just hung out in Tecumseh State Forest.
That's nice.
And
You guys can come up and pet him. Come on up.
She's been up.
The commissioners are staying behind the table.
Skin, does is it always
She
just
was up taking
clear?
pictures.
No coloring?
Oh,
on it?
yeah.
there's pattern.
Yeah.
Yep, when they shed their skin, some of the melanin does come off, so you can see the pattern in the skin. It is very pretty.
How often does he shed?
He sheds about every 3 to 4 months. They
that
shed more
much?
often when they're younger. When
Oh.
they're younger, they're eating more, they're growing quicker, so
Oh,
they'll
okay.
shed more often. When they get to this size,
Yeah.
the growth slows down a lot, so they don't shed as much.
Ah. Well, I'm glad that you're still going to keep him after you retire. It'd be terrible to see him go someplace that, you know.
Don't startle him.
Oh, yeah. Hey, there are mice in there.
Is it soft? Oh, that's what you're saying.
We got the, find the,
The sides are very
approval for you.
soft.
Maybe
They're like
you got
puffy.
Yeah, unfortunately, they let go.
Yeah, well, what happened there is you know, South Florida is a mecca for breeding facilities.
Yeah.
For reptiles, because you can breed them outside, you don't have to spend a lot of money on electricity. So, long story short, some of those birds have been knocked out.
this is South Road.
A lot of birds.
She has notes here.
So now, you know, they're down there, they're a problem. They'll never be eradicated, but
Not indigenous, but.
yeah, it's not their fault.
No, it's certainly not.
Just the trees, and he mentioned the trees.
They just do what they do.
Yeah, I know.
But unfortunately,
should-
they gotta go because they're wreaking havoc on you.
Well, they got them on TV anyhow, so they
Send him
can't
up
hear
to your
them, so
place.
We should leave him in here till the town council comes in.
There'd be a few.
It's gorgeous. Telling you, snakes always have a smile on their face.
It's a beautiful creature.
Thank
Yeah, thank you very much.
Bring that out.
you. Yeah.
Carried that thing up the stairs.
There's an elevator.
Gym today, so I figured, I might as well.
Well, there's the elevator if you,
I use the elevator to get back down.
yeah,
Going up is not hard.
I just can't believe how friendly he is.
I know, is he?
I think that's what he meant by they're used to
Yeah,
people interaction
yeah.
now.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order here. I guess Secretary better take the roll again. I just checked that nobody's missing.
Charles Duran.
Here,
Charles Ladd is here, racing to his chair. Virginia Higley.
Here.
Ken Nelson.
Here.
John Petronella.
Here.
Guillermo Salazar.
Here.
And Richard Suzak is here.
okay, and Alternate Petronella and Salazar are sitting in for the absent commissioners. Thank you for the demonstration of
You're most
of the type of animal you have. Almost seems like a domesticated snake, if there is such a thing.
Very docile.
Yes, he's a good boy.
Okay.
I trust him more than I trust most people.
Anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor or against this application?
It's
Is
an
there
SPR.
anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor or against the application?
No.
Anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor or against this application? Any commissioner with further questions? Well, okay.
Just a quick question. Curious, how many people do you plan to employ at the?
Right now, there's going to be 10 staff members, but hopefully, once things get going, we'll be able to hire more.
That's great.
Lori, anything? Again, I have to reopen it.
This is not a public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I like to
I know,
have
habit.
say something. All right, I know. But legally, I don't have to. All right. Jerry, I'll close SPR, what's the number? 1766.
No, 70.
76.
I got 66 of
Yeah,
them.
that's misleading on one of the pages, but it's 1770.
1776. Isn't that what I said?
Yeah, no, you said 66, but
Okay.
you did write it 66 on
60,
there.
okay. 1776, I'll close it.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve SPR 1776 in accordance with the draft resolution as prepared by the Planning Department dated May 9th with the 28 specific conditions, or conditions for, as indicated.
Second.
Any discussion? Again, as stated earlier by
No.
Ken, I think it will be a great addition to this South Road Plaza.
Did he eat Chinese or
And
pizzas?
I'll try it. I'll eat.
it should be a destination for a lot of people. May have to have some signs made for down on Route 5 to direct people.
Because I'd like to just make another comment that I live on South Road, and I've lived there for the past 42 years. And, I've always looked at that plaza and was wondering, when would it become rehabilitated? And I think that this could be the step in the right direction. And I actually, look forward to seeing it being, rejuvenated and bringing back some life to that portion of our road in terms of, like you said, it's a common road that I love and have lived for a long time. So anyways, we look forward to having you as a neighbor.
And
Thank
it's
you.
great for the school system as well. Enfield, it will be much more, they'll just do better, because they can come in and actually see what they're studying.
Right.
Sure, you get a lot of field trips.
Yeah, I've actually, when I posted this on social media, I've already got it, about 20 or 30 people wanting to work for me, and many of those are high school kids from Enfield that are interested in volunteering or possibly doing internships. So we look forward to offering that to the Enfield
If
residents.
they're interested in that type of things, animals, it'd be a great start
Right,
for
and there's no
for
place
the
around here for
learning
them to do that,
experience.
so.
I can't wait. I'm going to take my grandkids there. I can't wait till he's open. My grandkids are all the way down in age, so I can keep going back as they get older.
We'll have memberships.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I know my grandson, in his early years, loved dinosaurs, and it just evolved now into reptiles. And
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All in favor? Any opposed and no abstentions? Unanimous.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We really wish you
Good
much
luck.
success.
Thank you for
Good luck
buying
with
that.
the plaza.
We look forward to seeing you there.
That was great.
You have to call Linda and tell her she missed
Okay.
out.
80 Shaker Road.
I'm sure she's watching.
What is this? SPR?
SPR 1778.
Thank you.
We had agreed that no sidewalk
There's no sidewalks
Anywhere in there, so.
Oh, I know what I have in this. Why? They gave us the old numbers,
So you're gonna get one of those to bring home?
2018.
That size, it depend on who did.
Yeah, we'll let them clear out. Okay. Secretary, please take the roll.
Charles Durin.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Ken Nelson.
Here.
John Petronella.
Here.
Guillermo Salazar.
Here.
And Richard Suzak is here.
Again, Commissioners, alternates Salazar and Petronella will be sitting in for the absent commissioners. Evening, gentlemen, if you will introduce yourselves and
My name is Kiran Majmudar, LP Consultants, Engineers in Enfield. With me is Frank Camerata, owner of the property, 80 Shaker Road, Enfield. We are here for a request for sidewalk waiver for a site plan approval that was back in earlier this year, I forget the exact date. The sidewalks were part of the approval that we did not recognize. We should have asked for a waiver at that time. So as a result, the applicant would like to come back and request the commission to review that particular condition. The existing sidewalk on Shaker Road are on the northerly side of Shaker Road in the residential part, very close to the George Washington intersection up to Glenwood. On the south side, which is all industrial, buildings, facilities, and there are no sidewalks. So it seems logical that we should not need to have
this
sidewalks
didn't
on
have a waiver. That's why.
south side of Shaker Road.
Can
I just say one thing? I was here, and you repeated 3 times, sidewalks out front. I thought it was the parking lot out front. I didn't know, I never conceived that there was ever going to be a sidewalk on Shaker Road. I was odd that you kept repeating it, and I'm embarrassed to be here tonight, but I got
The,
nothing.
I was surprised as well because I don't know if there'll ever be up in that area. I don't think the prison would be ever putting in sidewalks.
No,
They might want to help
Strollers.
people to, but there's no reason. The tennis club is across the street and they all drive into there. I see no reason to do that. The form I was given, or the one that is given was, didn't have any of the listing, site-specific conditions. I had nothing listed there as a sidewalk requirement. So it must have been one of the hearings that we had prior to the last one. I don't know.
No, it's a while back.
It was a while back, yeah.
Well, I will say, when we were discussing it, I also was interpreting it as sidewalks around the building, because since when do we require sidewalks out at the roadway for an addition? Because that's all they're doing there.
Yeah, I know.
So, I mean, that's not a requirement that we add sidewalks when somebody does an addition.
in terms of, because these conditions that we're looking at for SPR 1778, are they the conditions of the original approval that occurred for the addition that we're putting on?
It says number 15, but I don't know what number 15 is, not on the one we got, copy we got.
Yeah, because,
Realistically, all those are the original conditions, and realistically, all you're here to do today is to say that
But where does it say that, then, if those are the original conditions? Because what I have, condition number 15 is, condition is all plans submitted for signature shall bear the seal and live signature of the appropriate professionals responsible for the preparation of the plans.
And I'm not sure why you're asking that question. Do you have something that says differently?
That's what I'm reading, is condition 15, yeah. The letter that
Right,
we
because-
have says what they want is,
Right. So I think that the staff gave you the original conditions of approval just to make sure that they are still known as the conditions of approval. All they're asking is a waiver of the sidewalk requirement.
where is that? I read all the conditions, I could find no requirement on this one.
There is no
Plus we
condition of
have a-
approval there. They're just asking for, so you just read the motion to approve SPR 1778 to not require sidewalks to be installed along the property. But meanwhile, all of these other conditions are still valid.
But that goes back to what I said, on an addition, when is it mandatory that they have to add sidewalks along the roadway?
Very valid point.
But
So
in any of
what
the
I-
paperwork, I have nothing listed that, we said that was required, is what I'm saying.
Right, well, it's
But
not
the
required.
approved plans have it on it.
Oh, the plans have it, all right.
Right, so
need
it
the
was
reference
just,
plans
they put it
for it.
on the plans, and planning and zoning is holding them to the plans. We
No.
didn't, no.
Planning and zoning, the staff asked us, let me start over again. When this site plan was approved, we did not have
Condition
sidewalks
number 15
on the
this
plan.
letter.
The conditions of approval, there were two different documents. And one, I forget which one is which, but one of them has that number 15 condition that says sidewalks required. So I did, there were two documents as part of the approval. So we were asked, so I actually emailed the staff, and they said, yes, the sidewalks are on the Shaker Road site, not within your own property.
Right.
So then it says,
Yeah, I
hey,
know.
you're
I'm
required to
willing to
show it
waive
on
it.
the plan before you file the plan. So we put them on the plan.
We don't require it.
So
And I was
I think-
told that it's part of the regulations to have sidewalks.
Right,
I-
but Ken, since it's on the original approval, we now have to waive it so that,
Charlie's saying it's not on the original.
yes, it
approval.
is.
Well, I don't know that it is, I haven't seen it, and because of the one we have, it's
Oh.
not there.
You have a
found
copy
it?
that shows it?
It's on the document given to us by staff dated tonight. And
Well,
it
that's the
says,
one I
under
just-
reference plans, it says waiver of sidewalks. And then it goes on, site layout plan
Well,
with
that was
zoning
just
data.
tonight, Jenny. Right. No, we're talking
Talking about the
originally,
Originally, yes.
he was told he had to put those sidewalks on there.
Right.
Charlie, we have nothing that shows our regulations don't require it on an addition.
No, I'm not arguing. I'm just saying it's a paper trail. Everything's a paper trail. And 5 years down the road, if he wants to sell it or, like build another
Well, that's
addition,
right, I agree.
if we don't do this, then he's going to have issues. So
But
we're
in-
doing this for him, not for us.
Karan is stating in the letter from Camaradas, from Frank Camarada, it says, condition of approval on SPR 1758 of November 16, 2018, condition number 15 is what they want a waiver of.
Yes.
And we don't have a copy of whatever that is,
Right.
whether it was done or not done.
That's exactly the point, that November approval, there is a condition in that there were two documents that I have. I don't have it here.
In other words, the
One of them
office
has that condition on it.
didn't give us November 16, 2018.
Right, so I I understand what you're saying, and I'm not okay waiving something that we don't have 15 in front of us, that is what he's asking to waive. So why don't we just waive the sidewalks on the front of the property, allow him to remove them from his site plan, and let him move on, because they're not required.
Yeah.
We shouldn't even be here
I know,
discussing
that's
this, so
that's right.
I don't know what he's referring to, and neither do you, because we don't have the paper. So I'm not okay with waiving that, not knowing what it says, but I am okay with waiving sidewalks that should have never been on the plan to begin
That's,
with.
I guess what I'm saying, right.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Chair, in light of that, I'll make a motion that we waive the sidewalk requirement for SPR 1778 80 Shaker Road to indicate that sidewalks would not be required for this application.
Along Shaker Road.
Along
Second.
Shaker Road.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. Motion's made, second. Any discussion?
No.
I don't think it's ever going to be sidewalks up that high. All in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Sorry it took so long, but
Just for your information, we have the DOT approval for the curb cut to the property.
What is
I'll give it to you.
Oh, yeah, I'll put it in the file. So, yeah.
that's why I say you gotta have the paper trail.
Yeah, boy.
Right. Yeah.
Wouldn't want to find that coming through your backyard.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah, the young kids know all of those.
They, yeah.
Definitely are aware of them.
But the newest dinosaurs.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, sorry, let's see, this is not that. Okay. Now we got our work done. Text amendments,
You didn't want to pet it?
okay.
I've petted, not that we're on
She
the
was trying
record
to
or
hide
anything,
behind the
but
chair there.
Brian is a consummate professional. He's done work for me, impeccable. I mean, just an absolute passion for this type of stuff, and he's taken his work the same thing. I mean, you saw him tonight as an educator and a, potential business operator, but Jeannie and I probably know him as a consummate consultant. He did some mitigation for me for a hognose snake and eastern box turtle. Total recovery, just gentle, and I mean, you couldn't get a better match. It's what he's loved. Oh yeah, when I walked in, I'm like, that's Brian. And when he looked at me, and then when I turned around, I did reintroduce myself. He's like,
I saw you smiling while he was talking. That's
Yeah, we tell you.
Yeah. So I wish him well. I think it's great. And there's been a number of people in the state that I've worked with that have been trying to do this. There was someone from out of state that was looking, I think, at Old Saybrook about last year. So I think there's a market for it. It just is, you have to have someone like him that has all the goodies,
Oh, yeah.
all the critters.
Definitely got a good collection there.
Absolutely.
Okay, Lori, I guess you're up, or who's?
So Val Farrow is here, and she and I have been working together on this. So this is kind of a community project, I guess.
Yes,
But
yes.
I'm gonna let her kind of speak her way through
Yeah, we'll
this,
give a
and I
little
will
background.
pipe in.
Valerie Farrow, Good Earth Advisors. I was here a few weeks ago. I'm working on behalf of a prospective owner-operator of a senior housing type use that has targeted Enfield after a preliminary market study. They're in the midst of a more detailed market study. As of yesterday, still interested in Enfield, still interested in proceeding. But as we discussed last time I appeared, the regulations as we know them today really don't accommodate actually a lot of senior housing options that we need and are in demand today. So what we've done the last couple weeks, we've expanded a couple things, and then I took a crack at the first draft of the regs you've seen, going back and forth. Lori's been great, just noodling through, what this means, what are the implications, and trying to be as broad as possible. What if it's in an industrial zone? What if it's in a residential zone? What will it look like? Overall, what we try to do, what my idea was, is to use some bulk requirements, which we can go over in a little bit, that will almost set the context of the site. So regardless of the size of the site, rather than being overly prescriptive, the side yards, the buffers, the things of that sort, the density will automatically basically let a complex evolve so that you're not really shoehorning anything in, but you afford some flexibility in the type of uses you're going to do. And in preparing this draft text amendment, I've continued to do more research in senior housing. Lori, I don't know if you shared with them this article. Yes. How I can.
Yeah, we have the copies.
Having people that I know in healthcare, coming back from some of the national conferences that are sort of going on in the last couple months, we're like at the cutting edge here. So I try to do some look back, which we'll get back to one of the other things that I sent you, trying to look at some just great facilities in the state, elsewhere, seeing how they evolved. Honestly, some of them, I think they were spot zoning, to be honest with you. I looked at some of the state's premier facilities, and I can't figure out how that would fit anywhere but where it is, which I guess is okay. But Lori and I really wanted to do a better job and be able to represent something that, if Enfield had a market for it, could absorb a number of these in different locations, and they would probably look differently. So that really evolved this text amendment. So besides...
Just a suggestion, as we've done before, could we go page by page?
Yep.
I think if
Yep.
any of us...
She just wanted to give a little background.
Yeah, I just want to give a little background.
Okay, no,
So
that's
before-
fine.
Yeah.
Just-
So before we jump in there, one other thing is that, excuse me, I did then continue to flush out, you see this matrix, you included this, correct?
Yep.
Just looking at towns that had nice facilities, what worked, what didn't, how big, just anything that I thought would be helpful to develop the bulk requirements and bake into this text amendment. So this gives you an idea, and it took a while, I have to admit. I thought I would just, a few hours of internet searching, but this was days of work, literally, because it wasn't as straightforward as I thought. But so now you have a little tool here. If you want to look at something else, you've got this nice little matrix. So from that information, then we started drafting this text amendment. So at the chair's request, we'll go through this page by page, probably more like block by block, because there's some things that should be pointed out. And what we try to do is point out what was new and revised. One of the things that we actually spent a lot of time on were the definitions. There were cases in your regs that cited something that you didn't have a definition for, and in some cases you had definitions for, but you didn't have a reg for. And I know you're going to be embarking on a complete revision, but we just tried to do the best we could.
Those are our regs.
Those are your regs, and
don't
we're
know
working with them. Correct. So the first thing is active adult, which I'd probably add it's active adult facility, but that's a new definition.
I have one thing in there, and I think it's something Ken has raised before, is just the wording intended generally. Because I think, to me, when you say intended generally, it opens up to whatever. In other words, you could put in anything else plus those 55 years and older. I don't know if there's something better than intended generally, but you put in generally and it means, you could just leave it intended for those 55 years and older and then say, well, that's
Sure.
intended.
That would work.
But not use the word generally.
Generally, that would work. And that's a great observation, and there's a little bit of background there. One of the things is that in the first draft that Lori and I worked through, I was more specific in the ages, and then I started reading case law. And I thought, oh no,
Yeah, right.
we don't want to go there. That, someone didn't get in and they filed because they were 56. We don't want to go there. So there's very specific, I guess, legal implications when you actually, in a definition, prescribe an age. So when we say intended, that's a good thing. Generally intended, that's fine. But when you prescriptively say, it must be 55 years or older, you have to provide a birth certificate.
But the intent is 55 years.
The intent
but
is, correct.
You can
Yes.
do whatever.
But that's what led to that language.
Okay, and that would go also for the next one, assisted living.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And we should probably say intended.
No, it encourages older residents age 62 years of age or older. You're encouraging older residents.
Okay.
You just take out the word generally again.
I think that the reason that there's some ambiguity is the fact that sometimes if somebody is 62 and they're married and they have a 55-year-old
Right.
spouse, they're not going to be, they could still go in there. So that's
Yeah,
why
well-
it's intended generally for 62, but you could have some
You're
cases where
encouraging-
they're not.
You're
Right.
encouraging that age. You don't
Right,
have,
right.
it doesn't say you can't have
Right.
anything else.
Two 61-year-olds, I mean, whatever it is. Okay. And that, I was going to say,
Do you
so
want
that,
us to read through these, or are we just going to comment on them
these
as
are
we
the
go?
corrections I have on this page, and what I would do is, people have corrections on that page too.
yeah, that would be
Jump
good.
in. The last one I have is down independent living, and maybe you can ask me or answer for me. Housing arrangement, it says for aging adults. When are you saying a person's an adult, I guess? And we're all aging, so I don't know.
Some more than others.
Yeah, but I don't know what would go in there.
Well, the intent is to read the rest of it, so not snipping it just by age. Capable of taking care of the majority of their own needs and do not require assistance with activities of daily living, but are offered services, there's a typo, and amenities such as meals, laundry service, and planned social activities. So remember that in an assisted living facility,
Can you
there's
just
a-
use for adults who are capable of taking care of the majority and leave age? I don't know.
So many of these definitions really come from like the true definitions when you start going into like AARP or something like that. They do have very specific definitions, and we just kind of tried to wordsmith it so it wasn't
Right, no,
quite
I
as
understand that,
detailed.
Right.
I
And
just-
the other thing is, remember, the intent is that this is a private facility,
Right,
and there will be an application.
but.
So you don't, whether you're an independent living unit, an assisted living, an active adult, you have to file an application.
Why not,
reviewed,
instead
it's-
of aging older adults, then, is that what you want? Because you have young
Sure.
adults.
Yeah.
I don't
Older.
know what you want.
Yeah, older,
We're all aging.
right.
Even when,
In there.
huh?
A housing arrangement that encourages older residents, generally age 62 years of age or older.
No, you're in the assisted living. Go down to independent.
Independent.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
A housing arrangement for older adults who are capable, and you could also say who remain capable.
It's whatever, but I was just taking
Yep.
maybe older adults then instead of aging.
Okay, that's fine.
Because I have a comment for the one above that, elderly housing, in terms of, looking at the last sentence in terms of, by, Social Security Board as being totally disabled, in terms of, is totally a practical word? Because when I hear totally, it means that, you're sort of a paraplegic.
That's under, that's really, that's not an opinion. That is a federal Social Security condition. So you have to go through hearings, and why we modified this is to make sure that people understood that what we're doing here and what my prospective
certified
client is
by
looking for is not elderly housing. Elderly housing, I believe we talked about before, under the Social Security regulations, you can get SSI and SSDI, so disability insurance under Social Security, but could be 40 years old and be deemed incapable and are getting Social Security. Under those regulations, you may enter an elderly facility under Social Security. So we're not doing elderly housing in the types of facilities I'm writing the text amendment for, but we did notice that your definition needed to be cleaned up a little bit
we
so
can
that it
cover
was
everything if we're doing
clarified. Yes, yes. And, housing for the elderly, it's elderly housing, and if you go into the federal regs, you'll see how that's defined.
Well, they're saying that totally disabled would not be a problem citizen, is essentially what they're saying.
Well, you can read between the lines, but,
That's what it says.
this elderly housing is defined as statutorily or federally statutorily defined. And again, in private facilities, there's often income requirements. They tend to go the other way, not the lower end. So we wanted to be clear that we're not talking about elderly housing receiving Social Security, disability income, things of that sort.
Yeah, because would it make any sense to add, a person who has been certified by the Social Security Board as being defined, quote unquote, totally,
Yes. Yes.
disabled?
Yes.
Because that, because all of a sudden with the quotes and being defined, it
Yes.
specifically says that you have to meet those regulations, as opposed to being
Correct.
totally disabled
Yes.
without any quotes
Yes.
means that, a
Yes.
paraplegic. And,
No,
and I
that's-
think that would be a clear,
Right.
at least for when I'm reading it.
Well, under Social Security, it could be mental illness.
Right.
It could be all sorts of things.
Right.
And again, we just cleaned this up because we were doing them.
Right.
This wasn't,
Okay,
really
so
the
what
intent
is
of the
it?
facility we're
Between
looking
what?
for.
Right, there.
How does it read now?
It should read, a person who has been certified by Social Security Board as being defined, quote, totally disabled, unquote, under the Federal Social Security Act. So basically, there's a definition somewhere.
Yes, there is.
That says this is what a totally disabled
Right.
person is.
And it's not just a
And-
definition.
right.
I mean, you have to go to a
Right,
hearing.
right,
you
right.
have
Well,
to get
but
all
I'm
this
saying,
Yeah.
ultimately,
Yeah.
it's, again, a specific
definition.
definition.
Yep.
And so that, and we're looking for that specific definition.
But isn't the fact that they're looking for having to be certified, doesn't that trump the definition? If you're certified, it doesn't matter how you're defined. You have met the requirement by being
But you're
certified.
certified as
So we're
to
beginning
being
to split
totally
hairs.
disabled.
Right, but addicts can go get certified 100% disabled
Right.
and collect.
But
Well, yeah, this is what you're quoting here is what this says.
right.
But
It covers it.
yes, but so how does that, as being defined, how does that change it?
Because you're certified and they're defining you as totally disabled. That's the label they put on you.
I think his point is that they're certifying you as totally disabled, so you don't need two verbs or adverbs of
Yeah.
certifying, defining. It's, if you're certified, you have to go through that process. And oh, by the way, particularly for folks that are maybe younger, people are wondering, I mean, you continue to have hearings, there's certain things you have to adhere to under the Social Security disability insurance, but, so there's a lot of background to that. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, you've got to,
I see it as redundant,
Yeah.
but ultimately.
Well, again, I think that, if we put totally disabled in quotes, then I don't think you need defined.
Right.
Because
sure.
because I guess that's what I'm looking at,
Yes.
is that there's a specific definition as to what totally disabled
Right,
means.
so someone could go to the federal
Right, rather
regulations.
than saying,
yes.
I'm totally disabled, I can't move.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my definition of being totally disabled. And so,
Yes.
but does that, again, trump whatever the Social Security Board says? And at least then it's sort of specific that, this is a definition.
I think that's a good compromise, just.
It's their definition, right? Because as Kenny says, the drug addict may not be totally disabled in the terms of not being able to move.
You have some typos on the first paragraph. Do you want to?
Yes, I saw those.
Okay.
But if you,
Okay.
Okay.
Are we
I
done
sent her
with-
another draft with the typos corrected.
Are
I'm
we
like,
done with page 1, people?
Yep.
Okay, let's go on to page 2. Anything on page 2? Yes?
Just a few minor things. Under Planned Senior Life Community, purpose, and it says on the second line, any zone except BR. Wouldn't you also put in industrial park? You wouldn't want it in the industrial park, I would think.
well, no, we would.
You
We
would
want
want
in
it?
any, did we have BR? Why
So,
did we?
so BR, we just figured you probably want to try to keep that
Oh, yeah,
retail commercial.
definitely.
Right.
But the industrial areas may have a
No,
viable.
I'm talking about the industrial park, not the
Oh,
industrial
IP.
zone. IP.
The industrial park.
Okay.
That one you definitely want to keep for the businesses, and if you're building something, those businesses are there and they're making noise and commotion and might not be anything.
Where was this under purpose?
Although for me,
Same.
it's
catalog
almost
here.
like I would have the developer and the market-driven,
Well, I'm just throwing it
yeah,
out.
yeah.
And the other thing I saw was under C3, this use may be permitted in any zone, and then you have to add except BR.
Except
'cause you have
BR.
it above. And again, I think it should be out of the industrial park, but that's just me. That's all I have.
Well, the only thing, there's industrial park land that was never used, that was supposed to be the golf course, which might be useful for this type of housing.
But they could,
Was that an IP?
somebody could leave the building and sell it, and then the building can turn into one of these. And I wouldn't want my mother or father there, but that's, again, just me. So,
Well, it is a special permit, so I mean, if you feel that it doesn't fit the area, you could say that. But
I don't hang my hat on that. We went to court about, trying to do things, pigeonhole things that we thought we could do under special permit that we weren't allowed to do. So, again, if everybody wants it in the industrial park, then go for it. But you got to watch out for the businesses too. They don't want people wandering around their business.
Long Meadow's got that type of use in their industrial park.
really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, they would, as I said, probably the parcels that were designated the golf course would be useful for them. But I don't know.
Although they're also pretty wet there. That's the other
No.
problem.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Anything else on that page?
so what is the consensus on adding IP?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Leave it in? You want to add
No,
it,
just BR.
or just BR? Oh, when you say leave it, I'm not sure what you meant.
So it's
not in
special
there.
permit anyway, so our industrial park is pretty maxed out unless we're gonna put it in the golf course, which would make something like what John was saying in Long Meadow.
So
that
what-
could be a beautiful-
So what Laurie is saying
Yeah, I
is
was
just
thinking up on
BR.
the backside on
And
Middle Road
everywhere else
area.
it's allowed, including the industrial
Unless
park.
the snakes got out.
As long as it's got sewer and water. So,
Right.
Well, there are parts of it that you could use.
Okay, so we're going to leave BR, we're going to leave it as it is.
okay.
Did anybody pick up any other typos on this page? Because I didn't.
Okay, the next page 3. I have one. Item 6, and I don't know. In one of our, in a couple of them, zoning areas, we have required, where it says passive outdoor amenities including but not limited to landscaped, and it goes on. We put in at least a certain number. In other words, we held them to 6 or whatever, or 7. In other words, because otherwise, as we first had Mayfield, only wanted to do 1 or 2, and we said, well, you got the land, and they did, I don't know, what we have, 5 or 6 on those?
So when you say you had a number, was it like you had to have a certain percentage of the site, or?
No, we
Number
said
of amenities.
It was
at
a
least-
list. And
Oh,
we
oh,
We gave a
picked so
list,
many
we said
out.
at least 5 of these
Gave
10
a
or
list of
whatever.
10 of them and said you got to use at least 5.
A menu.
Yeah, it was. We said you don't have to have a trail, but here's a list. Pick 5 or pick 3, I forget what it was.
It's really the quantity of activities that the various activities that they, rather than the number, it's the quantity.
Well,
That's what we
obviously
read.
for senior housing, there's a little different play there. Because they have to
Yeah,
be age appropriate.
Yeah. But
That's
they
why
would
they're
have their
typically
choice,
passive.
Sitting down and watching a pond like East
Mm-hmm.
Long Meadow has a nice pond there. I don't know, they don't use it for that.
Probably wouldn't want a running track or anything.
No.
Yes,
they
but they're
wouldn't.
all passive.
Yeah,
Is
right,
the point.
yeah. Did you find that,
I'm looking, I remember seeing it. I just don't remember where. I think it was multifamily.
So besides
'cause we've used it
open
a couple
space,
times.
gardens, meditation spaces,
We used it on South Road with the Troyanos. And we used it up on Mayfield.
You could have a pool.
Yeah.
You could have
Oh,
a
here.
recreation area, whatever you call it.
Meeting hall.
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
lodge
Yeah,
kind
so-
of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have it under 4.70.6E under amenities, and that's a multifamily housing district. And you have, you shall provide at least 4 of the following amenities. You've got walking and hiking trails, pedestrian areas with benches, scenic area displaying natural or artificial water feature, planting areas, outdoor picnic areas, fitness center buildings, sports court, outdoor or indoor pool.
I mean, same thing
Putting
you
green.
listed, except we said take a pick of
Sure.
these.
yeah, that's great. Absolutely.
So how many? Like,
Probably better than 4.
limited to landscaped?
I don't know. It
Well,
would be-
again, we have to be concerned about how many
Yeah,
options
it
we have.
depends on what they're
for
putting
open-
in, the cost of them.
Find something to
Or-
take out and put something else in.
Yeah,
I mean,
Feature walk or something.
So it's 4, he said 6, make it 5. Meet in the middle.
well, let's count. Do we have,
there's only 3 things in there. Landscaped or natural, okay, landscaped or natural open spaces. Is that 1 or 2?
2.
Okay, that's 1.
Landscaping is, you can't count that as an amenity. Everything's got to have landscaping.
Yeah.
yeah, that's not,
That's nothing.
It says,
Okay,
no,
resident
no,
gardens.
not limited to landscaping.
Yeah.
Or-
I think what we typically say is landscaped or open space. Sometimes, like I've done open space that actually was created. It was landscaped, it was
Yeah.
humanly done.
Landscape 1,
Right,
not 2.
right.
Right, that's what.
That's
As
how-
opposed to
that's
an
how I-
open space that's totally natural, like, I know developers is like, yeah, there it is, and it's like woods that you couldn't even, you'd need a machete to go through, but it's technically open space. So there is a difference there, but it should just be 1. It's more
So-
like an either-or.
You're,
In terms of, I would be okay with, once we develop a list of those amenities that could possibly use, so that we don't make them use 100% of that list, that, we can recognize that we want more than one, but not necessarily 100, and then try to figure out where we fall within
Well,
that
you're
list.
better off having a number that they have to meet for.
Right. But we don't have the list yet. I think that
Well,
this is just a working,
She has a list right there.
but I only see 3 things there.
No,
All right, so how about we do landscaped or natural open spaces as one, resident gardens as
Two.
another one, so that's 2, meditation reflection areas as 3,
Yeah.
walking or biking trails as 4, and why don't we add pedestrian areas with benches?
How about the on-site storage facility?
Hold on, scenic area, I'm just gonna go through the list. Scenic
Yeah.
area displaying natural or artificial water feature.
Why don't you just add the whole list to it?
Well, because I don't think that they're gonna be putting in an outdoor or an indoor pool for,
They could, but.
it's
They
probably
could.
not
Seniors,
feasible
that's
for this use.
exercise
But
for
maybe in
seniors
the,
is
maybe
best.
in the adult, active adult, they might?
Yeah.
I'd throw them in if,
They have to do that, they pick out of
They-
the list.
Do
Yeah,
you-
that's
you
what
wanna
I'm
just
saying.
add
So
a-
if they don't want a pool, they don't pick a pool.
That's right.
but,
All it-
just a quick question, does an internal pool, inside pool?
And they also,
Either.
Yeah,
Okay.
they can also.
I mean, some facilities you've gone in, they have aquatic
So-
therapy and there's a pool there, so.
so why don't we, how about we say, okay, so we say,
Or they could also add,
They can use that.
or items suggested by them, because they may come up with something.
Okay.
That's a good point. That's a very good point, because who do we know? Someone might
I've
come
seen
in.
you sit around and play cards. I had a friend
Be
who
on a
go up,
golf course,
or
in
golf,
the industrial park.
or a putting course.
so
Maybe have a putting
would you
course,
like
yeah.
us to just add the amenities as listed in 476.6E, as
Yes.
I've just read?
The recreation center.
With
Or the applicant has the right to alter with the approval.
a suggested recommendation.
I would put
Yes.
that in, because you put in a little putting green for them, they'll go crazy.
6.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And other suggested,
Being New England, you need something indoor too, like the recreation center.
Right. Well, most of these facilities do have that.
Well,
That's
they're
the
gonna
thing.
sit and play cards.
Right.
They already have fitness centers.
so we could do that.
Yeah.
We'll just add all of them, and you want to have at least 4? Okay. Okay, we'll modify that wording
Sure.
before we send it out.
The applicant has
Option.
the option.
Is 4 the same number as the other, the list?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, it says
Then
at
leave
least
it.
4.
But leave it, because it's better to have same unit, yeah,
Yeah, okay,
Consistency.
no, that's great.
good. Okay, that's
In number
Oh.
7, go ahead.
all I had.
No, please.
Just quickly, I thought for number 7, instead of saying the zoning commission, we might want to say planning and zoning commission.
Okay, good point.
Yes, good point.
That's all I
Zoning
had.
commission.
On that same number, after elevation, on the 3rd line, it says elevations is of a character, should be
Are.
are of a
Are, I
character.
marked that up. Mhm.
That harmonize with, instead of to harmonize with,
Are of a character
that
that harmonize with
and preserve the appearance.
That's right.
Harmonizes.
You can say it either way, I
Active.
think. That harmonizes the plural.
Plus, of course, you're putting it in a bad neighborhood that they don't want.
You don't want to harmonize with that.
I don't think that'll be an issue either.
I think the intent is
Yes.
understood.
Enfield doesn't have bad neighborhoods.
Some not so great as others, maybe.
That's what my wife says.
Because in number 8, in terms of, I guess looking at the last statement, in terms of it says sensitive populations, I'm not sure what sensitive would mean.
It's almost special needs
Well-
or,
What I'd like to see in a site plan, sometimes you have engineers, and they look at the ADA requirements, and they're like, check. And then I come in and say, forget the check, because we have folks that maybe have different mobility needs. Yes, the ADA is there, and you have the right grades, but maybe you want to be a little more, cognizant of other things, not just the compulsories of ADA. And so typically, we make reference, in healthcare and other things of, other sensitive populations, even
That's what we did with
visitors.
senior,
So, we just want people to be aware that we don't want it to just be a checklist, because I'm sure you see site plans all the time. Yes, we've met ADA, the grades are correct, and we have the compulsory parking, done. But, it doesn't really work with the site the way.
Because unfortunately, I'm an engineer and I'm super sensitive. I don't know what that means.
Aha! There
I
we
just don't
go.
know that. So you caught me in terms of.
See?
You've actually,
Yeah.
caught me. So I guess I'm looking for some more.
instead of that
Yeah,
word.
sensitive. Could mean that I don't like the sun. And I don't like noise, and so.
Yeah,
and-
but we're only talking about accessibility here.
Okay. Well. Okay. So maybe we should say people.
We could say mobility.
With that are. What's a good
Have
word?
The needs of various mobility.
Yeah, we could adjust that, because maybe mobility would be.
Yeah, right. In terms of that, of limited mobility or something.
Yes, yeah, that's work.
How about account for the mobility needs of the populations living on site?
Right. Or people of limited mobility. That would.
Well,
would be
yeah, but
better.
mobility takes care of the
I think
whole
that easy.
range.
That sounds good. The account for the mobility needs of the
the population
populations living on site.
Yeah.
I like that. What a team.
We have a good commission.
Good.
And, one of the things that might entail is, instead of a ramp for the handicap, for a wheelchair, just being big enough for the wheelchair, it's going to
yeah.
account for somebody walking beside the wheelchair and behind and perhaps on both sides. You just never know what that need is, and sometimes you need to be able to be next to that person.
And that's one of my biggest challenges, because when, maybe I'm brought in to look at a facility and they already have a survey, and I look at the survey and I was like, they didn't, from my liking, they didn't do enough spot elevations, because, as you know, even if you have hip issues, a little inch could make a huge difference between, do you have to raise your hip up? Do you have to lift your leg up? Can you get out of your car? And so often we see these surveys and they're good to like a foot. That is not good enough when it comes to people that have mobility challenges. So you have to be very, very detailed. So, it's an art and a science. It's not just, standard practice of site planning, that's for sure.
And some of us trip over chalk marks, so.
I know. And get sued over it.
How's about the rest of that page? Anything good? Okay, then let's.
Because I just have one more comment. In terms of your bulk requirements and the maximum density, I always have a problem when I look at like parking in terms of, I'm looking at 20 dwelling units per acre, and then I'm looking at 1.5, parking spaces per dwelling unit, and then some additional, parking spaces for visitors per how many dwelling units you have. And I just see this parking thing multiplying, and what I don't want to see is having a parking lot that looks like a shopping center because of the fact that all of a sudden you have 60 units and you're going to need 180 cars,
Right.
and so how do we get around something that is that huge in nature, where it starts getting out of hand.
Right. Well, in fact, that's why we added a notation, because I actually called a few operators, checked with a lot of towns. Some of the towns have less, some of the towns have exceptionally more, and in fact, that's in fact what it looks like, a parking lot. So I think at the commission's discretion, you can lessen that parking. I mean, it would help with stormwater, helps with heat islands. I mean, there's lots of reasons why we don't need a lot of parking. And it also allows you to look at each potential use depending on the size of the site, how big and the types of uses and the mixes. Certainly, let's say I came in tomorrow with assisted and independent. I mean, the parking requirements there are much less. And again, depending on the facility, some facilities need more parking for employees because they're more intensive, like a skilled nursing facility. So I think we've tried to capture all of that, and in fact, we even considered, and some people thought, Lori and I batted this around, is it 10%, is it 15%, is it 25%? That shift change. You know, how many times have we seen when you're coming in, you're coming out? Well, these days, I mean, you just can't, everyone leave, whether it's in an industrial property or a healthcare facility. You just don't pack up and leave. There has to be a transition there. So we came up with 25%. That might even be too much, I don't know. But I think if you're comfortable listening to an applicant and them stating the case of, we're going to have, 27 employees, this is a type of visitors, these are our high demands, and go through that litany, I think then you make your decision.
We've also, Lori, like with Costco and other places, had pavers put in so that, well, like Christmas time and busy times that they
For
are allowed to
overflow.
park on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
grass
But of
grilled
course,
pavers.
they don't have overflow. I mean, it's really pretty limited. I think what you want to do is just make sure there's adequate parking and it's the right type of parking in the right location for the populations is the most critical
Right.
point for these facilities,
And actually, sometimes the
Well,
pavers
they'll be
are
all-
an issue for
yeah.
some of the
Yes.
older people with
Yes.
their walking with a cane
It's
or
off-
a
Permeable
walker
pavement can
or-
be a challenge.
No,
Yeah.
I'm just saying if there was a thought of
Yeah, but that would be done in
increasing
a
the
site
number of
plan.
people driving cars, which you can't figure out in the elderly housing, how many people are going to be driving.
But you already made a reference to the note number 2, right? That's where you try to capture that. With the commission may consider less parking at its discretion.
Correct.
So that's
Well, yeah, you could also, YM said that pavers was, you could consider more too, depending on the type
the
of.
situation.
But again, possibly what has to happen is that the applicant has to look at our regulations and come in with what our regulations state, and that we would have to make that decision that, okay, it looks like a parking lot and it's way too big for what you need, but, do we really know enough about what he's doing so that we can actually decrease the number of parking spaces that he needs? So, realistically, what might happen is that, if the applicant comes in with a certain number of spaces, that we would be more or less inclined to approve those number of spaces that he shows, because it does meet with our regulations. Unless he comes in with something that doesn't meet our regulations, and then our staff should be telling us, well, he doesn't meet your regulations, so he's not conforming to your regulations. And all of a sudden, he goes back and he changes it. So it's kind of
Sure.
a vicious cycle where what we don't want to do is be overly cautious about how many spaces we need.
Correct.
But again, and I guess what we have to do is weigh, the density of the dwelling units per acre versus the parking requirements for those units.
Right,
and,
because it's
and how
not-
does that relate to one
Right,
another?
because it's not just density, it's also.
Right, the employees.
20 units of memory care and assisted living are nowhere close to a parking demand that you're going to need for active adult.
Right, and possibly if we can sort of get, hone it down a little bit to say, depending on, what kind of facility you're providing or how much of a facility you're providing, you shall provide according to this matrix type of thing. In terms of.
Well, I
parking
think
space.
that's why we said the commission may consider less parking at its discretion, and it puts the,
That's how you can do that.
put the onus on the applicant to say, look, this is how much I have, and oh, by the way, in this facility, we're actually doing more memory care and assisted, and, if you have no memory care, and you had 40 units of active adult, and then you switch those out with memory care, they're not driving. There will be no cars, okay? So that's why you can't totally prescribe this with bulk requirements. That's the challenge of these types of things. You just have to sort of go with it.
All right.
It's hard to do, but
I have a friend that lives in New Jersey, Western Jersey, and they have a site there that's transitional. You go from adult living, or senior living, active, and as they get older, they can't do that anymore, so they move to another site on-site.
Correct.
My sister was, yeah.
There you
They
go.
go to that point where they're in a hospital bed at the end.
Right, right.
On-site.
Yeah.
So they, as they go down, they don't need the cars anymore. I know
Right.
My friend works there as a driver for the shuttle. They have
Mm.
a shuttle
Mm-hmm.
bus system.
Mm-hmm.
There's cars that haven't moved in a year. For people that drove in there.
That's because someone had their keys taken from them.
Well, no, they still can drive them.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course, they can use the bus. They
Yeah.
can take them wherever they want, and that's it. But the bus is actually a requirement of that being there. They have to have the bus.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all the facilities have drivers, buses.
It's a really nice system.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, let's, what, is that, how about, is that, you taking care of with that? Okay, next page.
I just had one question. In two places, I see an asterisk. Under the elderly housing, 2.5 stories with an asterisk, and then under planned senior life, 35, I guess, feet with an
Oh,
asterisk.
good question.
Where's the asterisk? Or what does it stand for? I couldn't find it.
Did it go away?
I see ones and twos, I don't see an asterisk.
2 asterisks.
Where?
Do you want?
All
Where?
right. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we went to the next page.
We did.
Oh, okay.
Which is,
The
Which
following
on the
is a
backside
completion.
of-
Your one
Oh.
page.
I think you're,
Sorry. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So where are we?
Yeah, and that was the last page, this one, that was
Oh,
just
it
kind of a
spilled over. I
comparison.
didn't put a page break.
Yeah.
So,
application to consideration is where we are.
Okay. I'm sorry. I do have a question
And
on
then
this one,
review
though.
criteria.
Yep. The last one, number 3, the architectural design is aesthetically pleasing. You know, it's like, who decides?
who decides?
You do.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we don't have guidelines, but I mean, if it looks like an industrial building, you're probably going to say, you know, how about
Rich will
putting
be
some
here.
windows in and,
All right. Well, I just wanted to make sure we weren't painting ourselves into a corner and we couldn't do
It's
anything with it.
it is a challenge. I mean, we want it to look like it belongs. It
Yep.
doesn't have to replicate something. You know, I can't stand when, you know, I call it drive-by architecture. You know, I mean, national retailers. It's
Yeah.
like no matter where you are, they all look the same. It doesn't do much for me. But you know, you do want it, and as we know, these facilities have high fenestration. You know, there's always attention to detail, and so I don't think you would be challenged by these types of facilities, but it's also hard to prescribe,
right.
you know, without design standards. And then how do you enforce design standards? Well, let's see, we have the Village District regs, which give us legal rights. I mean, there's all
Well,
sorts of other things.
Some of the neighborhoods do have guidelines, like the Hazardville
Yeah.
Historic guidelines.
street overlay and that type of thing.
But this could go
Here,
anywhere.
'cause,
Yeah.
You want New England up on
Yeah.
Route 5.
Okay, well, that answers my question.
So
Thank
if it
you.
goes into one of those design districts, then you would follow those regulations.
Got to be in those regulations.
But, you know, I think Val is very correct in saying, you know, they do like to have a lot of natural light. They like to have a lot of air and space and gardens, and they like the buildings to blend. So I don't think that it's going to be a big challenge.
Does this, Lori, end the new regulations? Is that the end of them, other than?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. The
'cause
other was
I wanted
just
to
for-
compliment you. I thought it was really a tough job, but it's done nicely. And,
Well, Val
Thank
did
you.
the yeoman's work.
oh, it was. It's a good job.
actually, on the next page, I have a question. Is that planned senior life community a transition community like I was talking about?
There's actually not an actual definition of a transition community. I mean, transition is something that sort of anecdotally people say you can transition into. So I guess in that vernacular, yes, it is. And in fact, we defined this type of new zone or this allowance to even include if someone wanted to include a skilled nursing facility. Now, that opens a completely different state regulation. You need a certificate of need. I mean, it's a very heavy lift. You don't see a lot of new skilled nursing facilities. But we thought, particularly in Enfield, you lost one, right? Maybe someone did have a facility, or they could do something, and they wanted to spend the time and money to get a CON. Great. And then you have that complete transition, that complete, and that technically would be what's called a CCRC, a continuing care retirement community. Seabury, Doncaster, you see a few of those around. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One observation
now,
on the
Lori,
previous.
How soon can we put
We have-
these in the book?
One more question.
Yeah,
It's more of a comment. That, on the previous page, review criteria, number 1. The
Review.
facility will help meet senior housing needs of Enfield and provide options. Wouldn't it be better to say for its aging population as opposed to?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And do we want to say aging for its senior? I mean,
Aging sounds fine.
a lot of people don't want to be using senior, but aging, yep,
I was reading the article, and senior is not so
yeah.
Yeah.
polite anymore or pleasing.
Anecdotally, I read this economic expert that is saying that, pretty soon ARP is going to be allowing 29-year-olds into their membership. Well, it's funny because right after that, I saw an ad the ARP was promoting, and it was, this young, hip guy talking, whatever. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's happening. So, aging, we're all aging.
That's why I asked you, where are
We're
the
all
adults?
aging. Yes, we are. As we sit here, we're aging.
ARP is a cash flow business, too, though.
Oh, yeah. You know why?
It's a business.
Insurance.
Okay,
That's really
Lori,
their.
I know this has to go to
Right,
Prague.
so we have to send it to CROG for referral. So as soon as we get, that's a 35-day
So-
referral, I think. So we're going to get it out tomorrow
Okay.
Do we have a public hearing before or after CROG?
after.
You have to do it.
So I'll have to
That's
look at the
what- so-
dates and see where it falls, and we'll have a
Well,
tentative
it's
date
all right,
scheduled.
so you'd be ready to, this is ready then to go to Prague. If,
Yep, with the minor changes that we made this evening, yeah.
So we'll make the
so
changes.
do you want to vote on this then?
Yes,
by-
please.
I'm sorry?
Yes, please.
Okay, so as this,
As amended.
this document as amended. it would
Lori,
be
does
the
this have to
motion.
go to the town attorney first, or
No.
It will go to town attorney concurrently,
proofreading?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
The motion should be this as amended.
I move we
Adoption?
adopt the amended, the document with the amended changes.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Charlie lied.
Opposed? It's unanimous. And again, thank you very much. That's
Thank you very much.
good job.
Thank you very
So
much.
just to confirm the timeline here, we will, this will be referred to CROG,
Yeah, we'll try to get it out tomorrow.
and
to
they
them.
have 30 days, but maybe we can, or do they have to statutorily take 30 days?
I'll see what their
Okay.
workload is.
They've-
Okay.
Yeah, they
What I'm
usually
suggesting here is if we can get it sooner than later.
Go to town attorney, or she
Yeah.
can do it at the same
Right.
time? No.
So we'll,
Yeah.
we'll see
We'll work
what,
it. Okay.
what timeline we can come up with.
Because
We'll
we're
have to
allowed
work with
minor
it tomorrow.
changes.
That'd be great.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
thank you
Good to
very
see you.
much.
Thanks for the snake. That was the first time I was able to do.
I don't
Yeah.
think we've done that before.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
Critter
Maybe
show.
we can have a fuller display once he gets open.
Well, you'll have to have a site visit.
Oh, we can have a field trip if we're going to do that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay, now the next one, Lori.
So there was also a request to perhaps change your outside audio systems. And the recommendation was, and this is coming from staff, based on some requests from different patrons. Upon review of surrounding uses in compliance with the Town of Enfield noise ordinance, the commission may approve outdoor audio systems. So if they meet the noise ordinance, they're not going to be disturbing anything, you know.
But how do we decide they're meeting the ordinance before we approve it? No. It says uses and compliance with the Town of Enfield noise ordinance. How
So
do we know that
we
they're
could
not
get the
going to?
decibel levels that they're proposing.
Pardon me?
We could get the decibel levels that they're proposing
Okay.
and make sure
And
that they meet
I was
that.
going to pull up the noise ordinance, but I didn't have time.
And the other thing is you're going to look at the site and say, well, you know, you're surrounded by houses, so no.
If you're in the
Or
middle
you're
of
in
the
the middle of
industrial
nowhere,
park,
why
Yes,
not?
But that's what I'm saying. We don't want to make more work for Rick chasing people around.
But Lori's right. If you're gonna,
If you're going to have a restaurant that's in the middle of a residential neighborhood, we can't be policing the sound. So the answer is no. No outside noise. If they're in the middle of ShopRite's Plaza, who cares? Nobody's going to complain.
But if it's like borderline and they say, well, we'll just have one guitar, and we say, okay, one guitar, and then all the neighbors start complaining because on the weekends they bring in 7-piece bands.
So then we just
And they're
say
in violation.
one
Yeah, and
one
then you have to-
violation, and we revoke
Yeah,
your
I don't know,
permit for
can we
the
do that?
outside.
sure. I mean, if they're not compliant,
Okay, because I know in the past, and I know the past is the past, but I know in the past, people have gotten approvals, and they're like borderline. There's a lot of businesses around,
I
but there's a
understand.
lot of, and the zoning enforcement officer had to chase the people around. And luckily, you know, the CEO could go out on weekends and evenings, but that doesn't always happen. So
right.
you've,
Yeah, good point. I mean,
sound does travel, depends on what you
I
have.
like Ken's
The
idea.
police department's going to handle the disturbance.
No, that's, they
After
have
10 o'clock, Ginny.
Ken, they have priorities, and policing the noise is on the list, but patrolling the town and answering calls and everything else is above it. I speak from experience, trust me.
The noise ordinance also restricts time, correct? Nothing
I believe it does,
between like
yes.
10 p.m. to 7 a.m., if I'm
I
not
think you'd
mistaken.
have, yeah, I think you'd have a right to put
Yeah,
a time
it's-
limit
it's
on
like,
it. Absolutely.
Okay, I
And
just
you could-
like
you
Work
could
can't
say,
start before a certain time in the
Correct.
morning.
you know, and you might allow a guitar
Yeah,
player without amplification.
Right, and that's what I'm saying.
But this might
I
be
like
just
Ken's
like
idea.
typed in music, but it's got to
If
stay
we
low.
get documentation that they've
Violated.
violated their approval, they can't have anything.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
But I thought you were just saying, Vicky, that the police wouldn't respond. So how do you get this documentation to figure out that?
You'll get people lined up at the door
The
of the
police will
office.
respond. We
They'll
got
No,
respond.
they
50
won't.
officers in this town. They may
The,
not show up right away, but they'll show up.
Yeah, but they might show up on a Wednesday and the band is there on a Saturday. What good is it on a Wednesday?
They've got witnesses, and people.
Jenny,
have heard
it's
of it.
not a perfect world.
I
You got to give
understand that.
everybody credit.
Yep.
And trust them for their word. If they violate it, they know we're very stern. You're done.
Okay.
We gave you the chance, you're done.
That's
But a lot
fine.
of these places, and John is right, you've got, I think, on weekends till 11 p.m.
Yep.
Then the noise, I mean, then you fall under the regulation already, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Noise travels, when they used to have the races at Riverside, I could hear the cars running around the
Oh,
tracks.
yeah.
Or you could hear
Hazardville.
when they had
Travels
a
down the
band in
river.
here. I mean,
So my car was a little loud, Charlie, all right?
The police also have to respond to a complaint. Somebody
Right.
puts in a
That's right.
complaint, they have to respond.
Absolutely.
it's like, it's,
Our police department is phenomenal
they
here.
sure are.
But they're also overworked and they're short. And yes, you have to respond to a complaint, but you don't have to respond immediately if there's more pressing need for your police services in another
they
part of
don't.
town.
Okay. Now, this would take care of what we want, this wording. is what we should be discussing, not
Correct.
whether the police are going to be here or not.
Right. So this is the proposed wording.
Could we change that around a little bit? Could we say, you know, the commission may approve outdoor audio systems upon, rather than say, start it with upon?
Okay.
It's, you know, just flip it around, because all of a sudden it makes a little more sense, because you know what they're talking about
Right, we'll put
when
that
you
up
first
front.
start looking at it.
Yep. So the commission may approve outdoor audio systems upon review of surrounding uses in compliance with the town of Enfield noise ordinance. Like that? Perfect.
The commission may also revoke.
Yeah, that should be in there.
Absolutely.
Without upon non-compliance.
Yep. Yeah, because I don't want to be policing it, but I want to give everybody due credit, you know? You screwed up, not us, so.
Yeah, it shouldn't take us, if it needs to be revoked, it shouldn't take us forever to get them out of it.
Although it took us 2 years to get a television shut down that was on the facing the highway on one of those restaurants.
So I just added, the commission may also revoke approval with non-compliance.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that wasn't even approved in the first place.
Okay, now, is that
Just motion to move this
Good with that,
to,
Rich?
as
for
amended?
referral?
As amended.
As amended?
So moved?
Second?
Okay, motion's made and as amended.
You-
All in favor?
To approve,
I'm not in favor.
send.
Huh?
I'm not in favor, if you're looking at
Okay,
it. Yeah.
so you're opposed?
I'm opposed.
All right, one opposed. 6-4, one opposed, and no abstentions. Okay. Now,
music
with
on
this,
thing?
what do we need to do? Is amend the whole, when we have a hearing on this, do we have
It's,
to?
it's the same process. If you change one word in your regulations that's substantive, you have to send it to CROG. So it's
Oh.
the same.
What's the
It's a s-
orange highlight on the back of it?
Oh, wait, I thought we were still working on this. Hold on.
Are we
I
talking
haven't.
about this one now?
I mean, you gotta
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, never,
just not an outdoor patio having a glass of wine.
It's the same process as the previous
Okay,
application.
The whole
So
thing has to go.
all changes have to go to CROG for referral,
okay.
and then we hold a public hearing. So it will probably all be done the same night, because I'm going to send them all to CROG tomorrow.
All right, good.
So,
Now,
and
places of worship.
Yeah, the last one, it really was, I was looking at, possible uses for the mall, and I was like, it would be really kind of not great, I think, if a big church decided to come in and take over the mall. I mean, that's our commercial and retail center.
Spaces already.
Well, so, I mean, we allow it. So I was just
I
gonna.
don't think you can
Yes,
stop it.
Yes, you can, if you don't allow it in that zone. It's already allowed in all the other
I
zones.
thought churches were allowed to go anywhere, because then the
No,
government
as long-
can't interfere.
So
That's
there
what I
is,
thought
there
the
is, that's why I gave you the Reliupa little sheet, but there's a lot of case law on this, and basically, you're allowing them to go into your town, and there's all sorts of places that they could go, but if you don't want a church in the middle of your commercial retail center, you have a right to say, no, that's not a use that we want.
I would want to see legal opinion on that from our own staff, because what if we wanted to stop a synagogue from going in the middle of a Muslim community? We could just say it doesn't fit in that zone. We could control,
No, well, first of all, you can't
but it's the same
regulate
thing.
the types of
But
worship.
we could be, I mean, you could discriminate by not allowing a certain,
but there's already
church in a certain area.
religious- There's already
One
a
at a time, please.
that's why I was always under the, let's face it, half our commercial buildings on Route 5 are now occupied by churches, tax exempt. And if we could have stopped it, we should have stopped it.
But the only way you can stop it is to not permit it in that zone.
I
And
want to
you
see
are allowed
legal,
to do
I want
that.
to see legal opinion on that, Lori, because I don't,
I thought there was a place in California that challenged that type of thing, and were allowed, they had to go in.
they were allowed in.
Yeah.
Right, you can't
And I
stop
thought
them.
there was one in East Hartford that was in the back of some residence, went off of Brewer. That was
Laurie, is there,
Street
oh,
or-
sorry.
No, one of the streets down there.
So,
Laura, is there, currently, are there any religious facilities of any type in the business professional zone? That's the one you want to...
yeah, the business regional. I do not believe so, not that I know of.
Okay, that's how it would be different from the
old,
other
Toyota
example.
building or no, the
And
was a
even
pool
if there
company.
are, they would be grandfathered.
Amco, yeah.
The old Namco building.
The old
So the
Amco
point,
building.
so when I was at the conference, the planning conference, I went to a RELUPA workshop, and Dwight Merriam who is a very local and prominent land use attorney. It's like this is his thing now, and he basically said, if you don't want a church in a certain zone, you have a right to do that as long as they're permitted elsewhere. It's just like we don't want big commercial buildings in a small retail center. I mean, you have a right to zone against things as much as you have a right to zone for things. So I don't see, this is going to go to legal. If there is a legal issue, they will let me know.
Well, I'd
before
have
we
to go to
discuss
that
it, let's do that.
And
We'll have to go to CROG, too.
Right, well, let's get a legal
the-
opinion
went to the
before we
APA conference?
spend time
Wasn't it that the
discussing
one that
this.
Saturday that we
Yeah.
went and?
Oh, no, that's no, I
Well,
went to the
we could
one
pass
at
it
the
and it goes to
National.
CROG and they say you can't do it, then that's finished.
Well, I'm not passing this.
Huh?
I want a legal opinion before I get involved, because they're the ones gonna
Well,
defend us.
So we're going to propose this. So my
Your chair.
My proposal is that we send this to CROG, make sure that they feel that it meets the regional intent. We send it to legal, make sure it's legal, and we don't. And if we get negative comments back from either of them,
It
then
dies.
we don't have a public hearing.
That's what we've done before. We get bad reports back. You're dead anyway. There's no sense in having a public hearing. So in reality, you're getting a legal hearing, a legal
Plus, if you don't
opinion.
ask, you don't know, so.
And especially from CROG, they're gonna be maybe tougher than the attorney.
I'll make a motion that we send this to CROG and our town attorney at the same time and see what kind of response we get from either or.
It's a vote.
Second,
I agree with the way you put that. Because we're not voting on it.
All you're voting on is to send it for
Okay.
referral.
Yep,
We're
I'm
voting
good with
on it
that.
to send it to CROG and the
That's why you're the secretary. Okay, second. It's been seconded, yeah.
okay.
So we got Rick and Jen and
Oh, no,
Vote?
I haven't called for the vote yet.
Yeah.
That's most, oh, yes.
right. So we've had
Okay, all in favor, it goes to CROG and their legal opinion, that's,
Okay.
we aren't voting on the thing itself, it's just finding out where we're at.
Excellent.
Okay. Anything on correspondence, Commissioner? Lori, I watched the council meeting the other night, and
I'm
I
sorry.
don't know if I didn't catch it all or I didn't understand what was going on, but South River Street people and North River Street people were showing up and mentioning sidewalks and getting worried about land taking and the sidewalks and everything else. And they did quote us as saying,
No property will be
taking-
taken.
we
Yeah.
weren't taking anybody's land. What's happened or what's going on, or, I don't know, maybe you don't know.
They're repairing the underpass. They
'cause
said you gotta take the land
From-
next to it. to
Well,
do it.
from what I understand
Well,
is,
I'm asking, let's, one at a time, if you know. I read the paper, but it still is not totally clear, because it also mentioned a bike trail. Now, we did approve a bike trail when Peter was here ages ago. I don't even recall where it was gonna go now. I thought it was going down Ashnuntuck and to the boat launch, and that was it, but I have,
You want me to say
They
something
got
now?
them stirred up anyway, yeah.
Okay, so what happened was, we've done background information and studies for the replacement of the South River Bridge, right? We've been working on the pedestrian and bicycle trail that's supposed to connect basically Enfield Street to the river. And of course, it all ties in with the transit-oriented development, and it all kind of comes together. And unfortunately, when we actually had the money to go and do the survey, what happened was we found out that our road, South River Street, is actually partially in the Amtrak right-of-way. So because of that, there is a pinch point between the right-of-way and Mr. Cogtella's corner house structure on Main and South River Street. We need about 20 feet, and that would require taking the house. The DOT will take the house. The DOT is the one that will actually go through the process of doing that if that's what is decided. I do believe that the town council were in favor, but, not happy about doing this. And it really is a public safety issue. If we don't, it's the only thing in the way of completing all of the different components that we have going on in Thompsonville. And, it's very unfortunate. If you look at it from a completely non-emotional standpoint, it's the right thing to do from a site plan, perspective. It's like if you need something to move, you move it, just from a site plan. But of course, from an emotional standpoint, nobody wants their property taken. So I do believe that if it does come to that I think that we could work something out with Mr. Cogtella. We've been having discussions about that in-house, where he should be made whole.
Which house is it?
Going on, used to be the Bucket of Blood. Or it's the red house on the corner there.
Yeah,
The
it is.
corner of,
After you go under the underpass,
It's kitty corner
you
to the
go-
left.
If you take a left turn to go across the Freshwater Brook Bridge,
yeah,
that red house is right on the road.
It's right on the corner, and it is right on the road.
When houses were built back then, they were right up on the
yeah.
street.
Right.
And that house probably could be almost listed as historic. My only thing is,
believe it is
what
not.
happens if you want to make new items, and I know we allowed for some of these, but means all our streets downtown are narrow.
Mm-hmm. That's
So, I mean,
absolutely
if you-
true.
You'd have to maybe go in and you'd have to knock down all the houses.
But
just-
that is true, but to accommodate for all of the improvements that we are looking to do, this is the one and only true pinch point. So, there's just not enough room to have a two-way traffic there and a sidewalk. There is not enough room.
But one-way traffic across that bridge is gone forever.
But they just checked.
Well, they don't want to have
I
that
know, so
one way.
why can't
That's the
you build
problem.
it
And
in the same
people do
place?
live down that street, and
Because it's in
you have to
Amtrak's
be able to get
right-of-way.
emergency vehicles
Yeah, I
down
know.
there.
But we should go to Amtrak first and see if we can't negotiate with them
But
before you
that
take.
grade level at one time was also on grade. It wasn't built up. That came after. I pulled the article out and gave it to Roger because it had been in the Enfield Press. So at one time, that was grade level,
The tracks?
the tracks. They also said last night, and I don't know if it's true or not, that the casket companies on Amtrak land were parts of it.
I'm
Because I
sorry,
think-
I didn't hear you.
That the casket company was also on grade level, on Amtrak land.
I don't know that for a fact. It's not unlikely, though.
Well, it was mentioned
It was
last
not
night.
surveyed.
How
So-
can the tracks be grade there, Charlie, when the rail station at Bigelow was
I don't know,
built
they
when,
must
in the
have changed everything.
1900s?
No,
And
it's
that
always been
parking lot
raised.
is
Because
up.
there were kids killed on grade It was in the Enfield Press. It could be in Roger's desk. He could have left it in the field. We were talking about it at one time. And I pulled the article out. You know, in the Enfield Press, it has that date a year ago, and it had that it was
100
on
years
level.
ago.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, a couple hundred years ago. But when it was built, it was on grade. So who knows? But
to
you
be-
also had people on North T-ville. Do they have to worry? I mean, North River Street too. At the meeting, and we're talking, because we told those people there's going to be nothing, and this is all news
And
to me.
there are no planned improvements on North River Street at this point.
Because there was a lady there that was worried about it, she and her husband up on North
Yeah.
River Street.
Charlie, I don't think that this has anything to do with planning and zoning. I think this has to do with the Department of Transportation. So
Well, it does
basically,
Very
with
much
us, 'cause
so.
we told the people that
but
nothing was gonna happen.
we can't determine what the Department of Transportation is going to do in terms of we don't have privy to what their plans are or what their requirements are. So what we can do is we can only enforce what our regulations are.
I'm
But
not asking for enforcement. I was asking for prior knowledge before we
Yeah.
mentioned.
But
That's all.
I mean, obviously, everybody's interested in this, and I will say that
we
it was
can't.
because of the survey that was done just within the last year that we found out this issue. So, I mean, everybody, there was a lot of questions as to, why didn't we know about this years ago? It's like, because we didn't have a survey done, and it took this much time to get the monies to do that. So unfortunately, that was the outcome of that survey. So,
Yes.
May I make a comment? I was at the council meeting, and so I was significantly taken aback when the couple of people said, the Planning and Zoning Commission lied to us to our face,
Yeah,
right? Because that certainly that was never our intention. But to your point, Lori, nobody knew at the point in time we were having those conversations that this survey
Correct.
was going to be done, and so
That's
here
right.
we are now. I think for me personally, the residents were seeing the two different, what can we call them, projects as one, because it all involved the same area of town. And so
Correct.
they saw everything as being related and that we should have had knowledge beforehand. I think for me, it was a lesson learned in terms of making those kinds of statements and assessments, never again. Because we did say it to people,
Oh,
this
yeah.
will not affect your property. And I know Richard saying, well, that wasn't our decision, but we were making some kind of commitment there to folks that we can't stand behind.
What did we say would not affect their properties?
We said that
sidewalks, because we removed sidewalk. They were all worried about sidewalks, and where would we put them? If you do sidewalks, you're going to take my land. And some of the
that walking
original-
trail that we were planning behind some, for future and behind some properties as well.
I was
and-
part of that
Right.
one, I understand. But that discussion of rezoning has nothing to do, like Rich said, this is a non-planning and
Well, I
zoning
know,
issue.
but
I understood that we know that to be the fact, and we know it's two separate projects. But for the individuals that went to the hearings, it all sounds that this is happening. This is only happening because a platform is being contemplated, right? And
the
well,
bike
the
trail
train.
we passed years ago, I thought it was dead, because we used to ask Peter when it was going to happen, and it never. He was going to write a grant. It must be you got the grant. I don't know, but that was passed
Yeah.
ages ago. And then they gave the top part of the trail, allowed Troiano somehow to take it as part of his property for the housing over here, whatever he's planning on the
Across from the town hall. on
cross,
North Main
yeah,
Street.
at the furniture store. So we just never knew where, I guess, the bike trail was. I just, until I read the JI Tuesday night, when they had the article in there, it was a little clearer what had happened, and probably didn't do North River Street. But she was down there, the lady from North River Street, too. The whole,
Yeah, she was
the
clear.
whole area was there.
yeah.
again, from what I understand, is it's a safety requirement because of the fact that the bridge is a non-conforming, a non-compliant, non-load-bearing bridge, and the bridge has to be replaced. And in order to replace the bridge, it has to be done to state standards. So it's our hands are totally tied. We cannot go to the state and say you can't put a bridge in there.
I didn't say
and
that.
we
I
can't
know
say
that.
it's got to be only 15 feet wide. So basically.
I know that. I'm just saying communication. Somebody
right. So
said
we
something.
never promised anybody that nothing would ever happen. We're saying that whatever action that we took as a Planning and Zoning Commission will not affect their property, and we definitely did not affect their property. It's the state of Connecticut that's coming along now and saying this is what you have to do in order to conform for you to get a bridge. So that our Planning and Zoning Commission never promised them, or whatever we told them that what we were doing, we always held true to our statements, is that we will not affect and we will not take your property. And we're saying that. So now all of a sudden, when the state comes along, that's a different entity. We can't speak for the state. So as far as I'm concerned, people have to get educated as to who's doing what and what is happening, and it has nothing to do with planning and zoning. And I think that's that simple. You know, we shouldn't dwell on it because we didn't do anything. Whatever we told them the truth. We did not affect their property. We did not take any property, and we will not take any other property. So at that point, let's sort of say we definitely are committed to what we told them, and that's the end of the statement.
That's exactly what I was
Right,
getting
and
at. But
it's very
the people
true.
don't understand it. As Bill says, they wrap it all together.
Well, then they can come here and talk to us.
That's right.
Because we did a zone change down there to protect them, and I said for sure I would never take any of the land.
That's right.
And a road has nothing to do with planning and zoning, and I know what the town council's doing and why they're doing it. I don't know anything about taking this house, or I still don't even know which house it is, but
Well, I was going to say,
What
you run
what
right into
street
it,
is
go
the
after
house
you go
on?
in the tunnel.
It's on the corner of Main and South River. So you go from here, you go underneath the trestle,
yeah,
Stop at the stop.
stop at
sign.
the stop sign, and look to your left, and that is the house.
Can be missed.
It's the
Yeah,
only
it's
house
the only
between
house
there and
there.
the old bridge.
It's a big
I
problem.
thought that was
Yeah.
the house on the riverside.
Yes, it is on the riverside.
I thought that house was a nice house right along the river.
There's a yellow house in back of it that I believe is Steve's also. I don't know who's.
Yeah, I know that he owns pretty much, I think, all the properties between Main and the
It's a
bridge.
beautiful piece
And
of
the boat
property.
launch.
Well, and the bridge.
Make a good
Yeah.
place for a riverside restaurant, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, he's
So-
been fighting for his property for years and
He
years
has,
and
every
years.
time,
Every
that's
time
it.
he turns around, he's fighting a fight there. And
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to,
However, as the Planning and Zoning Commission, you are correct. You did not take any of their properties, and that came up when the trail going through their properties was a possibility
Yeah,
and
that's
things
right.
like that. So I
And
think
we
that's what they were thinking
stopped
about.
it. We
Right.
stuck
So
to our word.
you, as the Planning and Zoning Commission and the regulations that you created, did not do anything to take anybody's property.
Right, but I could
I know
see their
that, we know
frustration.
that, but if
It's
you
the
watch
perception.
And the
Yes,
people.
It's the
I-
perception. It's all about the
absolutely.
perception, right?
That's
That's-
all I'm
Like we
saying.
baited them in, they agreed to it, then boom, 2 months later, somebody's house is getting
did a-
taken.
we
I
did-
see it, and
we did a
I would
switcheroo.
be
It's
sitting
the
there with them
perception.
if, like Rich said, you gotta be educated. And that's why I'm saying, if they come down and talk to us, we can explain to them.
Well, I think Rich did, you people did. I'm just saying, communication maybe, so that we were ready, or we could have said something
Right.
before, or I don't know.
All right.
But
You good?
Would've.
Motion to adjourn?
I don't know, Lori has some
Still got applications to read.
There
applications
is an
to be
administrative
received.
approval.
I think she has a couple of approvals.
Well, there's
Administrative
just the
approval,
one,
46 high.
administrative.
46 High Street.
Oh, there's two, I'm sorry.
That's a vape store.
Yeah, so basically it's going from retail to retail. I mean, it's really no different than what was there.
It's in the-
46 High Street.
That's the plaza, I think.
So it just happens to be a vape store, but it doesn't really matter. They could be
Yeah.
selling cigarettes, they could be
Mr.
selling widgets, they're
Mis-
selling
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we authorize administrative approval of site plan 1777.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay.
Okay.
359 Hazard Avenue. Medical office building into the old Hazardville school.
Right.
And
This wonder?
I understand
That's
that
just an
talking
application to be received, so, yeah.
This would mean later, and I guess, Lori, you're going to look into it, that, from what I understand, talking with Jen, he wants to go into offices or living upstairs or something, apartments they were looking at. So this may mean a zone change, because I don't know if we have in Hazardville of people living over the offices.
I think there was a section that allowed the mixed use, so we were talking about that. So I think that they will propose that, and I think there is an the regulations that will allow it. So, but we'll, because the two assistant planners spoke about this at great length with the applicant, where I did not, so I don't want to
No, I know.
overstep
but
something that they may have already done. But I'm pretty sure that this is, that it
Don't we
meets
have a
the
building
intent
like
of the
that on
regs.
South Maple Street and Hazard Avenue, right on the corner?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's the
true.
old school.
That's true.
No, the old
No,
hotel,
the old
across from
hotel.
the Institute.
That's right, the old hotel.
Second floor has apartments, and the first floor is a store.
Oh,
stories.
okay, there you go.
That's right, okay. Thanks for reminding
So,
me.
yeah, I don't know if he's planning on having the residential component put in immediately, but I think that that's his long-term plan.
That's what I understand, is
Yeah.
the long-term, and I
Biggest
forgot.
problem there would be parking.
Well, he's got quite a lot of parking on the side that they used to use as the playground. It's all blacktop.
So with that, just so you know, for the next meeting, so we could have the 359 Hazard Avenue, the one we just spoke about. AAA is probably coming back. And then there's a Dunkin' Donuts application. Just so you know, I will not be there. I will be on vacation that week.
Get vacations?
Well, so this is what I'm telling you. So I will not be there. Jen and Raquel are at Casio all next week. So they've been trying to get the packet done for that next meeting because they're not going to be here next week to do it. So, but I didn't know. So we've got Dunkin' Donuts, the medical office, and then AAA. So it's
Dunkin' Donuts,
Where?
is it on
I don't recall.
Route 5?
Yeah.
I believe where the old gun shop was, is that?
Yes. They said
Is it
something about that.
Angie's or the gun shop?
Angie's Package Store, but a call to arms, it was there.
Right,
Yeah,
in that building.
Right.
yeah, right there.
That, I don't know how
So-
you get around, you're going in way up above.
Business
Well, I
retail.
know
By
we
Angie's.
owned all of that at one time, because I owned State Line, the garage, and Bob Nugent owned all the pieces. from
Yeah,
Mars
but-
Motorsports. Well,
90
Mars
Enfield.
Motorsports is kind of overgrown, and you used to drive around back, so.
I don't know if
That's
they
what
resolved.
I guess,
Yeah.
because, yeah. Okay, well, that may take a while, because there was some, I guess, marks from what Jen was saying was in
The right of way.
right away, yeah. I don't know, we'll get it next week or whatever.
So,
Okay.
I mean, I don't think that it matters that I'm not going to be there. I think that the biggest issue is that,
If they're ready to go, let it go.
we could talk next week and just see how far along we are with, referrals and things like that. And if we're not getting everything,
You got a good staff.
Oh,
pardon?
yeah, it's-
You have a good staff.
Yes, but they're not here next week. So this is what I'm saying. Next week,
Nobody's here
both,
except for Rick.
both Jen and Raquel are going to be at Casio training, all 5 days. They will not be in the town hall at all.
So you're by yourself.
So I'm by myself, and I could probably do I know I can do these things. I just, I'm not sure where AAA is going to be. You know, the medical office, you know, I think that they've done partial staff report on that, and I could do the Dunkin' Donuts. But
Well,
Didn't we
Why don't
just
you put
extend?
Dunkin' Donuts off 2 weeks?
Yeah.
And you're off the week after.
I'm off the week after, but the ladies will be here
Those two could do
for
it,
the
yeah.
meeting if need be.
But
Right,
if we
but it-
extended the AAA till the next meeting, and we don't have that, we don't continue it then,
Well,
where does that leave
well, the
them?
next meeting is whenever you have the next meeting.
Well, we said the 23rd, though.
23rd,
but-
we get the date.
But
Is that a hard
let's say
limit
there's a
for them?
hurricane that night, and you don't have a meeting, it automatically goes to the next meeting.
Oh.
So,
But have they got the time?
it,
2 weeks, in 2 weeks, next
no,
meeting.
just tornadoes.
This is New England, anything could happen.
So if, would you like me to just regroup with you, Charlie, next week and see where we're at?
Yeah, because if these aren't ready and they got some ifs,
Yeah,
because I heard there's an if with the doctor, and if with the
yeah.
AAA.
So, yeah, so,
AAA.
so because
actually
I
the
can
three of
call them all and just, and also just
Dunkin'
kind of see where
Donuts.
we are with the referrals.
Dunkin' Donuts may have a problem, and I don't know what's around back.
Well, right of ways.
Well,
With Mark's, the way they want to bring their drive-through
the drive-through.
through Mark's parking lot, around the back of
Oh,
two
right,
buildings,
yes.
and then come out.
Yep.
I mean, it's going to be real
Actually,
funky.
they're
I
coming
don't
from the left
understand how
side.
they're gonna get people
They're not going
to
to come from the
realize
right
that's
side.
what
They're
they
coming
gotta
from the
do.
left.
So they're going to go in.
A U-turn?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
They have
Oh,
to
they
make a
changed
U-turn.
it then.
That's the plan that I saw.
Oh.
So,
Well, I was told too, that's
Right.
my understanding was
Put
they
it
were
off
going
2
in
weeks.
by the
Mark's
Marks.
driving behind
But
state
they had
line,
some
behind.
problems because Mark was,
and Rick went out and looked at the other right-of-way, which was full of
Might be,
vehicles,
Yeah.
Public
even
hearing
though it was a
time.
right-of-way.
So are you and them going to have an overlap at all? Like on next Friday?
No,
So
No, I'm out
it's
next
just you-
Friday.
Oh, you're out. So there's,
no overlap. So,
Yeah. Dunkin' Donuts 2 weeks away,
4 weeks.
4 weeks away.
so are you saying you want to cancel the next meeting?
No.
No.
Because we've had the
Well,
other
if
stuff.
they're if they're ready to go, I mean, we'll make it happen.
we can do that, that shouldn't be too bad.
We can do them all. I mean, worst case, we got questions, they get postponed like 90% of the other meetings when she's here.
Yeah.
Just move it along. You don't
Or
have
we
to-
could just make a motion to postpone Lori's vacation.
Yeah, right.
This is my annual vacation. I go every week, every the week before Memorial Day.
Nice. All right, motion
Come on,
to
John's
adjourn?
all packed.
Yeah, I've been packed for an hour.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and
And have a good vacation.
Yes.
Thank you. I will touch base with you next week. All right, and
that was one of the quickest turnarounds on writing zoning regulations that we've had. I mean,
Really?